Working 9 to 5 might be the normal routine, but not here in Abu Dhabi, where it's 5:05 local time, and where for many of us it's the end of an era, especially with Fernando Alonso bowing out of Formula One and the last race at Ferrari for Kimi Raikkonen. 21 escapades around the globe are completed here in Abu Dhabi, the administrative heart of the United Arab Emirates, home to around a third of the nation's population and providing an area for the tourist industry here at Yas Island, where for the 10th year, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix will start in twilight and carry us into darkness. The world's biggest indoor theme park sits right next to the circuit. Stars from the music world are performing on stage, but the focus for the next couple of hours is the track itself, with 21 corners spread over a lap of 3.4 miles or 5.5 kilometers, and where the lap record still stands from the very first Grand Prix to be held here in 2009, established by Sebastian Vettel. Well, the intervening years have seen various moments of drama. In 2010, Michael Schumacher suffered a spin on the opening lap at turn 6 and became a little too well acquainted with the Force India of Liuzzi. In 2016, Nico Rosberg executed a critical pass on Max Verstappen at turns 8 and 9, which would lead him to becoming world champion that year. But 4 years previously, his race ended prematurely when he was caught out by the slow-moving car of Narain Karthikeyan. The tyre compounds this weekend come from the softest end of the spectrum, but while 5 of the top 6 start on the mid-range ultra-soft, Max Verstappen starts on the more fragile hyper-soft. It may give him an edge on the first lap. He starts from 6th, but on pole position for the 11th time this year, it is the world champion 5 times, Lewis Hamilton. 11 poles in 21 Grand Prix. It's a 9th front row for Valtteri Bottas alongside. Sebastian Vettel, starting from 3rd, has had no wins in 7 races. Kimi Raikkonen's trying to cement 3rd place overall in the championship. Daniel Ricciardo takes his 150th Grand Prix start. Verstappen led from 5th in Brazil, 7th on the grid. Grosjean was delighted with his lap. Charles Leclerc looking for his 10th points finish. Final race at Force India for Esteban Ocon alongside Nico Hülkenberg. Best of the rest in the championship after the top teams. Tyre choice goes to Carlos Sainz, though. He could be a factor in this race. Ericsson in his final Grand Prix. Magnussen, who's never scored here, and Perez, who was 5th here in 2015. 15th on the grid, the final Grand Prix for Fernando Alonso. It's a 25th Grand Prix for Brendan Hartley. For Pierre Gasly, he's 17th on the grid, his last race with this team, and the same for Stoffel van Dorn. Last race at Williams for Sergei Sorokin, and for Lance Stroll, there are going to be a lot of changes for next year, with drivers moving around or leaving Formula One altogether. So there is the scene as we look over the circuit, over the marina itself, the boats there. Risk of rain, remarkably, for this session is 40%. Here we are in Abu Dhabi on the edge of the desert, and yet we have a 40% chance of rain. We've never known any rain during the race here in Formula One. Well, that might suit this man, Fernando Alonso, in his last ever Grand Prix. We'll have to find out.
This is it, fellas. Thank you. Have it.
Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas will lead the grid away for the final time in 2018 on the final formation lap in just a moment's time. They're looking for yet another 1-2 finish for Mercedes at this track. Will Smith getting out of the way. He just waved the flag and then rushed off to the side of the track. And even with these quieter engines, he's finding it quite loud out there.
Yeah, just as well he didn't come here a few years ago when the V8s and the V10s and the likes. But yeah, I think that's the thing. Formula One, you need to experience it live to really understand the raw energy and power of these cars, and the visuals as well, the performance at high speed. is quite something. The fastest cars in the world around a closed racing circuit.
There's Fernando Alonso, and we might be seeing quite a lot of this image. Let's hope that everything goes okay for him on his opening lap. Didn't work out for you on the opening lap, DC.
I made it as far as turn 2 in my last Grand Prix. I got tipped around by Nico Rosberg and then finished off by his Japanese teammates. So Nico still never apologised for that. Not that I hold a grudge.
Went better for our Mark Webber, though. He got a podium. He was actually the last driver to get a podium in his final Grand Prix. That was in Brazil as well. So well done to Mark. Let's see if Fernando Alonso can get a podium from there, then that really would be quite something in the McLaren. But let's just see how he gets on. Last race at Red Bull for Daniel Ricciardo, and actually Daniel Ricciardo's one to really keep an eye on here today. He's on a good set of the ultra soft tyres. He starts 5th on the grid, and there is a chance, looking at their race pace from Friday. Karun, give us some of your last thoughts before we get into this race.
Well, Ben, first of all, Mark Webber says to tell you he also got fastest lap in his final race, so he was still going strong at the end. But yeah, the rain, by the way, is slightly to the west of the circuit, so it doesn't look like it's going to hit the track.
All right, champ, here we go. Millions and millions of people watching. Got everyone here at McLaren cheering for you. Let's go out with a great race.
Yeah, let's do this, guys. We will give it all. As always, very proud of you.
So a bit of chat there for Fernando Alonso. So we don't think the rain is going to hit. I mean, it'd be extraordinary, wouldn't it, if we get a wet race here in the desert. But also, if it does start to rain, the track temperature is still 40 degrees. So the first couple of laps, if they get just a light sprinkling, would still be okay on slicks because the water would just burn off. So it would need to be a proper downpour if we're going to have to start thinking about other tyres. I don't know if the teams, I hope the teams have actually got the other tyres prepared, because it's really not what you'd expect here.
No, that's right. Let's hope they've got enough wets with. I'm sure they have. They always just cater for everything that can possibly happen, and it's not impossible. I was watching a major World Championship triathlon event from here where they had rain as well, so it can happen. And you never know, but right now it looks as though it's going to stay dry as the sun is setting in the background. You're looking at Daniel Ricciardo here, who will be starting in 5th place. Kimi Raikkonen starting from 4th position. So if we work our way up from the back, we've got the 2 Williams at the back row. We've got Van Dorn down there as well, and Pierre Gasly and Brendan Hartley. So the Toro Rossos haven't qualified very well. Then Fernando Alonso starting 15th. Further up, we've got Sergio Perez in 14th. Kevin Magnussen is 13th on the grid. Then Marcus Ericsson. Carlos Sainz is 11th. Then we get into the top 10. Hulkenberg in the Renault is 10th. Ocon, his final race at Force India, is 9th. Then Leclerc in the Sauber, he's 8th. Grosjean is 7th. Verstappen is in 6th place. 5th for Ricciardo. Then Raikkonen, Vettel, and the 2 Mercedes on the front row. Lights out, away we go, and it looks pretty good for Lewis Hamilton so far off the line. Yeah, Valtteri Bottas is going to go into 2nd place, into the 1st corner. So far, so good. Watch behind to see if there's any major dramas. Alonso's out wide, Grosjean's out quite wide as well. Battle between Ocon and Hulkenberg, still side by side, as they're chased by Verstappen, who was slow off the line. Verstappen's had a terrible start, and he's got a lot of work to do from there, but a great getaway for Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, that was perfect start for Hamilton. Bottas able to defend that 2nd place, but what went on for Max Verstappen, he's got a whole world of pain now. He's on those much softer tyres. The life of them is not going to be particularly strong. And you see right the battle at the very back there. Fernando Alonso running wide off of the corner at turn 1. Here comes Max down the inside, excuse me, Daniel down the inside of Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, battling as well behind him, going on between Grosjean and Hulkenberg's over. Hulkenberg's off and out and into the barrier, tripping over the other car. We've got more damage.
The safety car for sure.
So Nico Hulkenberg crashes out. We've got a fire at the back of the car as well. Hopefully the marshals can get to that very quickly. And what a disappointment for Renault. They were looking for a strong end to the season, and now the concerns. The halo, of course, will have been in operation there, and it wasn't the high-speed roll. It was dramatic, but the speed at that corner not so high.
Are you okay, Nico?
I'm hanging here like a cow.
Yeah.
Get me out of this fire.
Yeah.
There's fire.
It's alright, they're coming. They're coming.
Yeah, he can't get out at this moment, and this, of course, is one of the issues with the halo. Can he get out easily without the car being rolled back over? Here we are at the end of the first year of running the Halo device, the cockpit protection, and it's a little bit of a new area for us.
Yeah, there's no way he can get out in that position. I would say sitting on the nose of the car on top of the Halo, he'll be communicating there with the FIA doctors, and they all understand that they now need to manhandle that car back onto its wheels. Total weight with 100 kilos of fuel on board, and slightly more than that, is well over 730 kilos. And well, Sam Smith getting his emotional roller coaster of a first Grand Prix. Let's see if it inspires any writings and great songs for the future as we wait to see Nico being extracted from the car.
It's interesting, they've checked that Nico's okay. They wouldn't do this if there was any injury that he reported to them, because they wouldn't want to move the car.
Is he okay? He's okay, he's talking, he's okay. Okay, good. Yeah, good.
Well, it just shows the spirit of teamwork. We had the doctor at the other side of the car helping position the car before the marshals get ready to lower it down. This is a tricky manoeuvre for them to do, of course.
Into the pits has come Brendan Hartley, and damage done on that opening lap. He got caught up in some of that. There was a lot going on, and then of course it went off big style with Nico Hülkenberg tripping over I think the Haas of Romain Grosjean. Wheel-to-wheel contact. I'm always surprised it doesn't happen more often than it does, actually, David. That kind of incident.
Right. Well, we know Nico was talking to the team, and there you go. He's able to extract himself without the aid of any of the doctors. There you go. He's waving his hands to say, "I'm good. I'm fine. Let me just gather my thoughts and allow the blood to go back to my feet."
Yeah, having a conversation with Ian Roberts, who looks after the medical side.
There'll be there's a little sensor on the top of the cockpit, and if that goes red, then that indicates that he's got a mandatory trip to the medical centre. If it hasn't gone red, then if they ascertain by looking in his eyes that he's compos mentis, then he'll just return to the garage, and we'll be hearing from him, I'm sure, from Lee a little bit later on in this Grand Prix.
Well, Juan Pablo Montoya watching from the garage is a man who's had a few big spectacular accidents himself over the years, not only in Formula 1 but in IndyCar. Right, let's have another look. Now this was Ricciardo on Leclerc, and I think Ricciardo completed the move, but it's behind them. Look, oh, he locks up down the inside of Grosjean.
Yeah, okay, well, it was certainly, he was muscling his way down the inside of Grosjean, and then just unfortunate racing incident, I would say, on that. Grosjean was clear to Hülkenberg on his inside, so Hülkenberg knew he was there. He's given him space, and then Nico just hasn't left enough space for Romain. So from my point of view, Ben, that's just an unfortunate racing incident, thankfully with no injury. So Nico has run him right wide, and he's obviously felt at that point that Romain would have lifted out of it, but frankly speaking, he was within his rights. He had some of his car within the racetrack. You could argue the majority of the car was actually off the track.
This was the view from Verstappen. That was Ocon ahead of him as they all reacted to what was going on ahead of them, and Hülkenberg's car being fired off to the side. And then I don't know whether Ocon, I don't think he did manage to overtake Grosjean while all that was going on. They very quickly called the safety car. So it is under investigation for causing a collision. It's all a bit irrelevant really at this stage, I suppose, unless they decided to penalise Grosjean, but that would seem to be unlikely. Karun?
Yeah, just interestingly, Grosjean's car doesn't seem to be damaged. He's carried on past the pits. He hasn't come in for a front wing. They asked him on the radio, do you think it's damaged? And he said no. So yeah, he's carried on. So
let's have a look at the start, Dave. You're watching Max Verstappen. What happened there?
Yeah, he got absolutely mugged down into turn one. So initial getaway looked okay, and then it's almost like he's not had electrical deployment. It looks like there was such a speed differential that four cars were just able to drive around the outside. Now, what's going on with Daniel Ricciardo? Because he's ended up as well, he was behind Leclerc, so did Leclerc slipstream him and then get the pass done on the straight using that Ferrari power? And then you can see this behind. I think it's a racing incident. You know, if anyone is to be penalised, then it's going to be Grosjean for not giving up that particular fight. But well, unlike his movies, what you're seeing there is real. No stunts. And well, for those lip readers out there, I think you'll know exactly what Sam Smith had to say.
Well, that is a huge blow for Force India. Well, for Renault rather. That's a real disappointment for them, losing that car. The other car of Carlos Sainz is still in the race. Max Verstappen, by the way, up into 9th place behind the safety car now. So we'll have to see whether he's going to make progress from there after that, very odd getaway. As you say, he was quick off the line, but then it was as if he had no power at all. There is Hamilton. So he led from pole position. Bottas in grid formation. But Leclerc actually is being shown ahead of Ricciardo, so he must have got back ahead. No further action on the Hulkenberg-Grosjean incident. So the steward's agreeing with you, David, that it's very much a racing incident that can occur on the opening lap. And as I say, I'm surprised sometimes we don't see that more often in those kind of chicane-type corners where they're trying to run side by side, and it can easily happen. So let's just run through that order. As they come over the line, each lap does count, even though they're not racing each other. Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel, then Raikkonen in 4th. Leclerc is in 5th place, ahead of Ricciardo. And then we've got Grosjean still there. Doesn't look as though he's got any damage on his car, despite being involved in all of that.
So there's no further action on Grosjean. No further action on Grosjean, so no penalty for Grosjean.
He needs to know that, because of course Grosjean's ahead of him on the road, so no penalty means you're going to have to go for it, try and overtake him. Behind Ocon, then we've got Verstappen and Perez in 10th place. That's actually a good start for Perez to be up into 10th. Sainz is 11th, where he started from. Ericsson 12th, similarly. Then Gasly's made a bit of progress. Alonso's 14th, so he's gained 1, but Stroll is one of the big gainers. He's moved up to 15th, ahead of Magnussen, who's dropped back quite a lot, 3 places. Van Dorn 17th, then Sirotkin, and the man who's been into the pits, Hartley, and of course we've got somebody out of the race already, and that's Hulkenberg.
Yeah, I think safety car will be coming in this lap. It is indeed, and Lewis Hamilton will now go through his preparation phase to make sure his tyres are where he needs them to be. It's a fairly safe restart here for him, given the nature of turn 1, short run down to that corner, and then a fairly open apex. But just coming back to what you mentioned there about Stroll, it's a consistent theme of this year. You can argue if you're in a slow car, then you've got more cars to overtake, but he does seem to be an instinctive starter and has gained a lot at a number of the Grand Prix. So that's good sort of spatial awareness at the start of these races.
People are running around a bit down in the paddock, just preparing in case there is rain, so maybe there's a feeling it could happen.
And they consider that a racing incident, no further action, okay? So that's all clear.
Good. I think that was very sorry for him, but nowhere could go.
Yep, understood, mate. Yep, it's clear on the replay. Yep.
The safety car period is about to end, and Lewis Hamilton will determine the restart of this race. He certainly did brilliantly off the line from the standing start. Now he has to do it from the rolling start. He does have his teammate behind, but his teammate doesn't have to work the same way he did earlier this year when he was protecting him from Ferrari. This is a genuine race between the two Mercedes drivers. They're out there each for their own at the moment, and Bottas desperately wants a race victory to end this season, a season where he's not been able to win a single race. Hamilton gets on the case quickly now as they go beneath the hotel and picks up the speed immediately. He's always a bit of a master of these restarts, and already he's opened up just a little bit of a gap. The two Ferraris have dropped back a bit, but they're very close.
Yeah, he caught Bottas sleeping there. You know, it's down to the individual driver. The teams will talk through these scenarios, but he's absolutely aced that restart, taking the pressure off him in the big stop areas where you might get caught out from cold brakes and, you know, tyres having lost a little bit of surface temperature.
Verstappen still in that group further back, of course, so he's down in 9th place, and Daniel Ricciardo will be desperate to get past Charles Leclerc. But I tell you what, for Sauber, this is really crucial for Charles Leclerc, because Sauber could get ahead of Force India here. Oh, Ricciardo goes for the lunge down the... Oh, that was... Verstappen on the lunge on Ocon. The two guys who made contact last time out in Brazil.
He's got a problem, though. You can see he's just got no straight line speed. I don't think he's got electrical deployment. So he was able to chuck it down the inside, but look how slow he is initially on the straight. It seems to then pick up again, but that's exactly what we saw.
Made engine hot!
Engine hot, so it's in that engine hot mode, is clearly not deploying everything it needs to. He seems to be in the slipstream now, though.
Verstappen going for it again.
But look at that, even in a slipstream he's struggling. Let's look at his dashboard and see if he can read any of this, the information he's getting.
He's gained the place back from Perez, but he's still down in 9th place, really struggling. So Max Verstappen putting in a tremendous lunge up at the hairpin to go through, but then just no straight line speed whatsoever, and that's brought him back down to 9th. No change for Ricciardo, by the way. He's still behind Charles Leclerc, and that Ferrari engined Sauber is extremely fast in a straight line. It's going to be tough if Ricciardo doesn't find a way through. Of course, DRS will be operation soon.
Max, when you can, fail Charlie 3 fail, fail C3 fail when you can.
That's a reset of the sensor, so for the, what did it say, 33? Is it fail Charlie 3?
Yeah.
And that will reboot the system. It's like a Control-Alt-Delete on your computer.
So still a chance for Verstappen, perhaps. If he's been able to reset, will they be able to get this car running properly again? That's the question. He's now tucked in behind Esteban Ocon. He went for the move down the inside into the hairpin last time. He's down the inside again, Max Verstappen, oh, and he doesn't give Ocon any space at all. You can imagine that was going to happen. Yeah. Ocon got out of the way.
Yeah, there was a little kiss, wasn't there? And, you know, frankly, had Ocon not opened the steering, that would have been much more than a kiss. That would have been a full-on contact, but there's no speed in that Red Bull in the straight line, so let's see if he can make it stick down into the next chicane.
This is entertaining. The two guys who made contact in Brazil. It cost him the Brazilian Grand Prix victory. Max Verstappen, look how close he is as Ocon goes defensive to the inside. Will he leave a gap on the inside? He knows what Max is like. He does leave a gap in the end. Now, is he going to get the run out of the corner? No, so I think he gave up that space. He was looking to be on the better racing line. It's possible that the team have said, look, don't worry about Max, because we need to focus on the Saubers, because they are a threat here today, and we don't want you going out in a battle with Max.
Well, this is into the hairpin. Just watch this. Lunge number 2. Bonk. And if Ocon hadn't opened the steering, that would have been a much bigger contact. So, well, that's as aggressive and forceful as you're going to get away with, but give us some good entertainment.
Now, we're looking at Raikkonen a moment ago, and that was Charles Leclerc.
You've got a Ferrari stopping on the start-finish line, just looking down from the commentary box.
Oh dear, it's Vettel, isn't it?
Yeah, that'll be a safety car, because how are they going to recover that?
It is Raikkonen, so yeah, after being passed by...
So this might be a pit stop window for Verstappen on those hyper-soft tyres. Could they? I don't see the gap in the wall. The pit lane is much further down. So how are they going to play this?
Kimi Raikkonen's
virtual
last
safety car,
race at Ferrari, ending very early on indeed. What a shame, because there was a chance here, and you know what? He might lose 3rd place in the championship as a result of this, because Bottas is his 2nd place in this race, and that would be enough for Bottas to claim 3rd place in the championship. Verstappen is in the mix as well, but he's further down in the points at the moment. So let's have another look at what happened to Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah, total shutdown. Look at the dashboard. Lights have gone out.
What's happening? I don't have power.
Fail Delta 3-4 on. Fail Delta 3-4 on.
Well, he'd love to do that, but he doesn't have any power to actually set the system. So still in the car, still trying to, he can circulate the power, switch the power off, switch the power back on, and restart the car using the battery. We've got Mercedes out, ready for the pit stop.
So this could be a very important time in the race for the leaders. Lewis Hamilton still leading under the virtual safety car conditions. No safety car out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So because this slows everyone down, you don't have the same time penalty coming in if you do want to make a pit stop. The people on track are not going as quickly.
So it is going to be an early pit stop for Lewis Hamilton. Will it be a double-stack pit stop for Mercedes? No, Bottas stays out there. Sometimes, if they feel it's worth it, they'll stop both cars, but of course it delays the second car in doing that, and they've left Bottas out. So he goes on to a set of the super soft tyres, and they love that. A very fast pit stop. Vettel is now up into 2nd place. We've got a few more cars in the pits. Leclerc has taken advantage of it as well. Ricciardo stays out there.
It's going to be interesting because he is on fresh tyres, and that gives them other possibilities for later in the race. But look, he's coming out behind that Red Bull.
Oh, there's Kimi. Kimi Raikkonen out of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in the early stages. And that's his 4th non-finish of the year, but it hasn't been for a long time since we've seen a Ferrari go out. And remember, they've had to stick to 3 engines this year, and they've done that with Kimi Raikkonen's car. He's not had to serve any penalties for extra parts, but on this occasion, something has let them down. Complete shutdown on the whole car. They'll find out afterwards what it was, but a very disappointing way for Kimi Raikkonen to end his Ferrari career. He will get a drive in the Sauber this coming week because they will be testing here in a couple of days' time. Karun.
Well, it's interesting now, the strategy, isn't it? All these long safety cars and virtual safety cars are going to help Max Verstappen out because obviously this lengthens his first stint on the Hypersofts. Lewis, they've gambled, haven't they? They're going to try and go to the end. He could probably do it on the set of Super Softs, but not easily. That's going to be a little bit tricky. Kimi Raikkonen, by the way, is on the radio. They kept trying to get him to power cycle the car and do all sorts of resets. And eventually he said, "There's nothing on the dashboard. I give up." And he just got out of the car.
Okay, well, fair enough. You can't blame him for that. Sitting down there on the straight. What a shame to go back to the Ferrari camp knowing that it's all over in such a disappointing way. But as you know yourself, DC, sometimes these things happen. And yeah, I should think that he might disappear after the circuit, even though he's got to be back here for testing later in the week. Yeah,
he'll have mentally moved on already. It's the mind of the racer. It's like, okay, that chapter's closed. What's the next opportunity? He'll be out in the Sauber. But good news story is Fernando Alonso still running because they're much more sort of on the margin when it comes to reliability, and it'd be great to see him make it to the finish.
Hamilton using the virtual safety car for that pit stop.
Did you know that we'd come out behind us, guys?
A firm, Lewis. Just remember, you are going to the end now.
It's an early one stop for Lewis Hamilton as we get back underway again. We are up to racing speed, and it is now Valtteri Bottas who leads this Grand Prix from Sebastian Vettel. There are our 2 race leaders. 3rd place for Daniel Ricciardo, 4th for Max Verstappen, and now in 5th is Lewis Hamilton, having made the early pit stop. So he'll want to stay in touch because those guys will make their pit stops in theory quite a lot later. Now Ocon and Perez have moved up the order to 6th and 7th places as a result of Charles Leclerc going for the early pit stop. So we'll have to see if that works for Sauber, because only 6 points separate. Here comes Lewis Hamilton down the inside of Max Verstappen, and yeah, he's got that one done. And we could see a lot more of this in the future, Hamilton versus Max Verstappen, and I don't think Verstappen's given up, because he's got a great toe.
And he's got DRS, because that's enabled, so he's going to come back at Hamilton, who's on fresher tyres.
But Hamilton won't give up yet. He's down the outside looking for the space to come back at Max Verstappen. And this is great stuff, what we want to see between the 5-time world champion and the man who sees himself as a future world champion, and so do many others. And of course, last time out in Brazil, Hamilton took the win when Verstappen had the contact with Esteban Ocon. So great opportunity, but for now, Verstappen fought back extremely well. Does look as though that engine is running better now.
Yeah, I think that phase where he's getting the message that engine hot, then it puts it into a lower mode, and you wouldn't be able to deploy all the energy. So it'll be interesting to see if Hamilton slightly shot his bolt on those fresh tyres. Look how much he's sort of dropped back already from Verstappen. We do know that Red Bull is very strong in that last sector, though.
Correct.
Yeah, Ben, just listening back to some of the radio to Max Verstappen during that virtual safety car, he said, "Guys, can you tell me what happened?" He said there was some unnecessary PU protections in there, and they've reset some of those sensors, so that was the problem. The team actually apologized to Max and said, you know, sorry about that, get on with it, you should be back to normal power now. Obviously that still means less power than the Mercedes, but at least those issues that he had on the opening lap or the opening couple of laps should be gone now.
Well, now Lewis Hamilton has to think, does he manage the tyres because he's made this early pit stop? How does he play this for the rest of the Grand Prix? Up ahead of him, those guys have not yet stopped, the top 4. Vettel staying in touch with Bottas, by the way. Then the Force India's come through. Ericsson's got himself up. There's Charles Leclerc climbing back up through the field after his early pit stop. And he's managed to go past Kevin Magnussen. He's in 12th place. Fernando Alonso currently in 11th place. And 2 cars already out of this Grand Prix. Pretty unusual here in Abu Dhabi. Often we see very good finishing records for most of the teams and drivers. But Hulkenberg out in a dramatic first lap crash. And Kimi Raikkonen out of the Grand Prix with a car failure. On board with Brendan Hartley a moment ago. Ooh, he got that very wrong. Brushed the barrier. That was on lap number 4 a little while ago.
Yeah, those plastic tech bro barriers. Luckily, he hit it in between two of the main supports, so you can see the deflection there. So got away with it.
Valtteri Bottas trying to get away from Sebastian Vettel, but Vettel is maintaining pace with him pretty evenly, whilst also trying to look after his tyres. Don't forget that of this lead group, Max Verstappen is the only one on the hyper-soft tyres, certainly in the top 5 cars anyway. In theory, his tyres won't last so long, so Hamilton, in theory, should be able to bear down on Max Verstappen as those hyper-softs give up. But the Red Bull has been very good on its tyre wear over the last few races, and Max is extremely adept at looking after the tyre, so we shall see what happens there. It's still Bottas looking for his first win of the year, of course. There he is in the Mercedes, out in front with Sebastian Vettel shadowing his every move. Then Ricciardo in third, Verstappen in fourth, and as you say, Hamilton really has dropped back quite a lot at the moment.
Yeah, the key thing for Hamilton, he's 9 seconds behind Bottas, and as his engineer told him, then they're intending not to stop again this afternoon. But the critical sort of time is sort of around 20-21 seconds. If Bottas was able to get that gap out to that area, then he would come out in front of Hamilton on fresher tyres. So I do think it's a bit of a gamble that Mercedes have gone for. And is it, you know, in the fullness of time, we'll find out if it's a gamble they really needed to take.
Romain Grosjean went for the gamble too with Haas. So Grosjean, Leclerc and Hamilton all went for the early pit stop. And well, we shall see whether it works out for them, because they were all running very strongly. Of course, Hamilton was leading the race, but the other two were well in the top 10. There, I'm afraid, is Kimi Raikkonen's car, and flashing lights on it mean that marshals need to be a little bit careful too. The electrical power may not be completely isolated, but it is out of the way, and the race continues. And you have to say, Verstappen on his hyper-soft tyres is doing a pretty impressive job of maintaining pace with his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. These two are still very much in the mix.
Okay, so 2 cars ahead, quite slow doing 45.0s. You were 44.5, Verstappen 44.0, gap now 1.5 behind, 3.5 to Vettel.
Yeah, and that last lap, again, where they were slightly quicker than the two leaders. So the Red Bulls are the fastest cars on track at the moment.
Yeah, Max on that tyre is closing down the gap.
Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, is in 5th place, Karun.
That's right, Ben. When he came out of the pits, he was, and after that virtual safety car, he was 8.9 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas. The gap now, 8.9 seconds. So actually, he's protecting those tyres, but don't forget, by pitting on the virtual safety car, his pit stop only took half as long. So he has saved that time. I think that's why he's dropped back from Max. He's got out of the dirty air. I think he's just managing it. If those leaders pick up the pace, I mean, as we heard Simon Rennie saying there, the leaders are going quite slow in the 45s. If they pick up that pace, that's when I think it could get tricky for Lewis. But right now, all he needs to do is manage that gap to be under 20 seconds.
Meanwhile, Carlos Sainz chasing after Marcus Ericsson, the Sauber driver Ericsson in his last ever Grand Prix. By the looks of things, he's moving over to IndyCar racing in the States for next year. But he's in 8th place at the moment. I know things will sort themselves out with pit stops later in the race, but 8th is actually the best he's ever finished in Formula One. But we are expecting his teammate, for example, and Grosjean to probably move ahead once the pit stops take place for these guys later. But Carlos Sainz is keeping him honest. Renault only with the 1 car still in this race. Their 4th place in the championship is pretty secure, unless Haas have an incredible race. And right now, that isn't looking particularly likely. I think Grosjean will score points, but Magnussen, down in 13th place, hasn't made a pit stop yet and hasn't really made any progress so far in this Grand Prix. Carlos, he'll be moving off to McLaren next year to be joined by young British hopeful Lando Norris. Put in some good performances here this weekend in the final Formula 2 races of the season, but it was George Russell who won the championship. So let's go back with Max Verstappen.
See the smoke there, that's from Vettel's car. He locked up the previous lap as well. So we're seeing systematic lockups under rotation in the front axle, over the front left on Vettel's car. So that's not going to be doing his tyres any good.
Carlos Sainz having a go at Ericsson, but Ericsson defends the inner line. Now, it's on the exit here that Sainz might get the better run, a little bit like when we saw Verstappen get back past Lewis Hamilton. So he's got the slipstream, he's got DRS in operation as well. but has he got the horsepower?
Look at the speed of that Sauber Ferrari, given it doesn't have DRS. That's impressive.
Yeah, very strong, that Ferrari power in the Sauber, and he's able to fend him off. We've just had news about Carlos Sainz's teammate, Nico Hülkenberg. He has been fully checked out at the medical centre, and he's all okay. So that's fantastic news after what was a dramatic opening lap crash. But Hülkenberg and Raikkonen are 2 retirements so far in this race.
Yeah, Sauber going too deep there in the sort of street circuit section under the hotel. Managed to get away with it, but all of that is allowing Sainz to get himself into position. Not much he'll be able to do down into last corner, first corner. So would he take a gamble like Max Verstappen into the hairpin here? We're seeing the replay of what Verstappen did on Ocon, and then the little kiss of the front axle. A little bit of payback from Brazil.
Yeah, this is Brazil. This is what happened at our last race when Ocon was trying to unlap himself, got alongside Max Verstappen, and the contact was made. Similar to the Hülkenberg-Grosjean, except that it didn't go up in the air.
Yeah, it was more wheel-on-wheel, which thankfully is when you get the front wheel underneath the back wheel that you get Grand Prix cars or any single-seater racing car, quite frankly, getting launched.
So do you think Verstappen's on the radio now saying, get Daniel to move out of the way, I can go faster than him?
Yeah, 100%. You'll be saying that. He's on the softest of the tyres, and the life of them, well, if it was under normal sort of running conditions, we expected about 15 laps of normal performance, but with the safety cars, of course, he's able to push that later into the Grand Prix. Daniel we'd expect to be in for a one-stop, so he'll be managing his tyre pace a little bit. But as we heard from Christian Horner on the grid, the only instruction was just be sensible, give each other room.
Here comes Carlos Sainz again. He's got the move made on Marcus Ericsson this time. So Carlos Sainz, he does look up. Has he made the corner okay? I think he has. Yeah, he's knocked down the escape road. So Carlos Sainz has got into 8th place now. Ericsson still in 9th, still on target for points. And Pierre Gasly is in 10th position. Karun. Oh, don't know if you're there, Karun.
Yes, Ben, sorry, I don't know what happened. Lewis Hamilton's been on the radio to ask, are you sure we were going to come up behind these guys? I don't think he's convinced of the strategy. And now the gap eking into the sort of 9 seconds, 9.3. A point that Mark Webber just raised is actually, you know, even if they all pit and he comes out, still in the, you know, at that point in the lead by 5 seconds, he's going to have really old tyres. So I think that early stop is really not going to work out. Charles Leclerc, by the way, the other one who pitted, he was in a great place, if you remember, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, and he's now way down in 12th behind Fernando Alonso. So I'm not sure this early stop has worked out for these guys.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Karun. Irrespective of what actually does happen at the checkered flag, I would never want to give up track position if you don't have to. Having clean air, being able to control the pace, he was in pole position. And with this championship one as well, they don't need to be getting too funky with the strategy. And I would, as you see, Nico Hülkenberg wandering back. He'll be heading his way to the press area to be grilled. I'm sure Lee, they've got a good relationship. I'm sure Lee will be gentle with him after hanging upside down on the seatbelts.
Yeah, that was a pretty scary looking incident, and we're having another look. This was up ahead of them, but in the background then coming into view were Grosjean and Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg squeezed alongside and then turned in across the front of Grosjean's car, and that flicked the car over and over again and into the barrier. Thankfully he's unhurt. It took a little while to get him out. The roll hoop did the job it's due to do, so the halo didn't make any difference effectively in protecting the driver at that stage, but a bit of difference perhaps when it nestled up against the barriers, and does make it a little bit harder to get out. But the driver's safety is, of course, the most important thing. Now then, into the pits has come Sebastian Vettel. So he's gone for a relatively early pit stop, and not, of course, with the benefit of safety car. And it was quite a slow stop, actually, 3.7 seconds. That's outside the normal range.
Yeah, well, this should bring him out in front of that group there, Ocon, Perez. He cuts underneath the circuit. You'll see him appear up on the left. Actually, he might come out behind Ocon. Let's just wait and see. He has indeed. So that has not worked for them. They've made that stop with the anticipation of doing a sort of 2-second pit stop, and I expect he'll overtake Ocon pretty quickly. But that wasn't part of the plan. That just shows the importance of the pit stop strategically. But he'll be in DRS zone. Look at them checking the guns. Is that what what went wrong? He'll get DRS and he'll get the pass done. So in actual fact, getting DRS, and he probably didn't lose too much through those first few corners. That's probably gained him a little bit of outlap time.
So that puts Vettel back in 5th place, having made the pit stop. This is where it went a little bit wrong. It was a slow stop, right rear. Was it getting the one off the right rear that was a little bit slow, I think? It's a shame because the last 2 events, they've had the best pit stop of the day, both in Mexico and in Brazil, and they had a 1.97 second stop, which is the fastest stop we've seen with these big wheels that are now used in Formula One when the regulations changed at the beginning of last year. So, but it didn't quite match it this time.
Yeah, Mercedes out in the pit lane, so let's expect that to be for Bottas. Bottas in from the lead.
Valtteri Bottas responding to the pit stop for Sebastian Vettel. It was a slowish stop for Vettel, and that should give Mercedes the opportunity to get him out. 2.5 seconds, not their best ever, but certainly over a second faster than Sebastian. I'm not sure that Sebastian Vettel's going to be able to make up that kind of ground on track with his fresh tyres on. We're about to find out, though, because as Bottas dips below the track with this unique pit exit here in Abu Dhabi, you should see the red Ferrari flash into the picture, but yeah, he's going to be safely out in front. And if you look in the background, you will see Vettel somewhere, but a long way behind. And that is an opportunity lost for Ferrari. Whether a good pit stop would have been enough, I'm not sure, because you look at where Bottas is, and even a decent, I don't know, a decent pit stop could have had them pretty much side by side.
Yeah, I think so. I think that definitely could have put them in contention, but as you say, that's a slightly earlier stop than Mercedes would have liked for Bottas, and that means that Hamilton, who stopped on lap 6 in that safety car, virtual safety car scenario, so it's only 11 laps difference in life, so that actually makes it a little bit more comfortable for Hamilton now than finding himself on much older tyres in his competition.
Carlos Sainz on the attack again, this time up against Esteban Ocon in the Force India. Takes a really wide line into the second part of the chicane. That's the opportunity that then presents itself because you get a better exit. The Mercedes-powered Force India is very quick in a straight line normally, and that's where maybe the Renault will suffer. He's got a chance, he's up on the outside, but no, down the inside. Meanwhile, Ericsson and Gasly going wheel to wheel. Gasly had a good opportunity, but it didn't quite happen for him, and Ocon has stayed in front of Sainz. Daniel Ricciardo leading this race at the moment, courtesy of pit stops, and it means he's managed to lead 100 laps this year, which is great because he'd led 99 coming into this one.
And is it 100 Grand Prix with Red Bull?
It's 100 Grand Prix with Red Bull, that's right, and it's his 150th ever start. Away goes Verstappen. So Verstappen started on the hypersoft. He's in good shape here still. He will now, that will be his one and only pit stop for the race.
Yeah, this will put Daniel actually under a little bit of pressure because Max is going to hit this outlap. Look how tight that ridiculous exit pit lane is. I remember when the circuit was first revealed to Formula One, they were the responsible parties were super excited about this pit lane being underneath the track, and I went, well, it's not great for spectators, is it? And they think, yeah, we didn't really think about that. So anyway, meanwhile, back out front, Vettel will be hitting, Verstappen will be hitting these tyres hard, and I expect that Daniel Ricciardo will need to pit to cover him.
Well, Daniel Ricciardo leads for the moment. It's Hamilton now into second place. That earlier pit stop now maybe coming back for him. Bottas in third, Vettel in fourth, Verstappen currently in fifth, having stopped, and Sergio Perez there in sixth place. Behind them, we've got Ocon and Sainz. This is the battle for seventh. And then we've got Marcus Ericsson still under a bit of pressure from Pierre Gasly. It was a 2.0 second stop for Max Verstappen, so that is the fastest we have seen from the two top teams so far.
Yeah, this double DRS down into the chicane and then again on the second straight normally would put Sainz in a good position, but the straight line speed of the Force India, the Mercedes power, is just too much for the Renault, even with the DRS wide open.
At one time earlier this year, David, we thought Ocon was going to be going to Renault himself, didn't we? But of course, Daniel Ricciardo changed that situation.
Well, I think that was, if you remember that interview we had with Toto Wolff earlier in the season, where he said that, you know, effectively, not the exact words, but along the lines of we shook hands on a deal, and normally that would have meant a deal is done. And that was a direct dig at Renault having agreed verbally for Ocon to join, and then reneged on that particular agreement.
Ocon comes in now. He is making his first and should be only pit stop. Fastest lap for Bottas, who responded to Vettel's last lap around. The gap between them, 3.4 seconds, so the pit stop worked well for Bottas. Let's see how Force India get on, shall we? That looked pretty effective, certainly faster than the Ferrari stop. 3 seconds, though, it wasn't as fast as Red Bull put in a little while ago.
Interesting that Daniel Ricciardo stayed out, the fastest man in the second and third sector, because the first sector includes the actual pit stop time, was Max Verstappen. So he's doing exactly what you'd expect in exploiting those new tyres.
Okay, now, so everyone ahead of the pitted. Let's keep pushing on. You know the plan now.
Yep.
In a way, he can do something else, I suppose, because he's...
Updates on your tag level. So we expect Ricciardo just to go long. We just need to keep him in check.
Yeah, because he's not under the same threat of as some of the others were against their rivals, so he can just stay out there now and see how well these tyres last.
Yeah, and then put himself in the situation of having much fresher tyres at the end of the Grand Prix. I would expect him to start losing some track time and therefore ultimately track position once he's done his stop. Let's just see where he is on lap time. It was a 44.4 last time, 44.2. And then the key thing really will be what lap times Verstappen and the likes are able to be delivering. And I think the gap was about 3.8 that Max was behind Daniel when he went in for his pit stop.
So Lewis Hamilton finds himself in second place now, trying to close that gap to Daniel Ricciardo, but Ricciardo due a pit stop at some point. Then Bottas in third, he stopped, so is Vettel. Vettel's slow stop certainly costing him a chance to challenge the Mercedes. Verstappen is fifth and Perez is in sixth place. We've got a little bit of cloud around as well.
Yeah, difficult to see on a dark night, isn't it? But the cloud is, and there's some rain in the area. Verstappen was 0.8 quicker than Daniel, and he's now crucially just 20 seconds behind him. So indicating that when Daniel does make his stop much later in the race, he will drop behind. The battle, remember, he was in front of Verstappen ahead of Verstappen's stop, but right now he'd be effectively behind him, but on much fresher tyres. So I think we could have a bit of a tasty battle between those two and their final pairing as teammates.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Verstappen will be chasing down Vettel in the meantime, and we'll see what he can do. Just outside the top 10 at the moment is Leclerc, still behind Alonso, but remember, Leclerc's already made the one pit stop. Current track temperatures at 34 degrees, that little bit of cloud around, and we've got quite a brisk wind today. It's blowing quite briskly across the circuit, so that does affect the handling of the cars.
So all the top cars now on supers, apart from us. Hamilton 6 behind, Bottas 15 behind you, Vettel 18 behind, and Verstappen 20 behind you.
Okay, well, that information will have been digested. Daniel knows exactly that that means he'll pop out behind his teammate after the stop, 44.3, so a tenth slower than his previous lap. Let's just keep an eye on where Verstappen gets that gap too. And we're just picking up some information there from Ericsson saying his car's undrivable, but he's actually doing a faster lap time than Charles Leclerc, who's running in 11th.
How are your tyres, Daniel? How are your tyres and balance?
Yeah, fairly consistent. Still got to look after the rear, but I can hold this.
He can hold that, but after a pit stop, it would put him back down into fifth place of the way the laps and the times look at this stage. But of course, he would then be on a much fresher set of tyres than the 5 or the 4 that would be ahead of him. So there could still be a chance for some of Daniel's demon manoeuvres.
Yeah, well, you know, he's one of the best on the brakes, but I think this is just a nice moment for him to reflect on clean air and seeing a pit board with number 1 on it, because there's no guarantee that Renault will take a big step forward next year when he joins them. So maybe some time before he finds himself leading a Grand Prix again.
It's a good spot, as you say. He's had 2 victories so far this year. The win in Shanghai, which he snatched from Bottas in the closing stages, and that brilliant victory in Monaco, which he led start to finish, but lost power very early in the race. And he's been talking about that a little bit more as we've got to the end of the season, and saying actually it was probably the toughest race of his career. In order to stay in front, even though it was Monaco, it was still one of the toughest drives he'd ever had.
There is a threat of rain later on in the race. It doesn't look like it will need inters. Just keep your tyres in decent condition. And if the rain does hit, it will be on the main straight we expect.
That would certainly benefit Ricciardo if they did need to change tyres, because of course then they'd all have to come into the pits.
Yeah, there's that. Quite interesting to see. This is the main straight. Well, this is what I would call the main straight, start finish, unless they're calling the back straight down into turn 8 the main straight. Because it'll do well to rain in the middle of the track, having missed everywhere else. So anyway, having started that that statement, you can see the replay of the stop. Let's just see if it was all nice and slick. Rear jackman goes in. You see there's a spare jackman there just in case there's a failure, and that was very slick work from Red Bull.
That was brilliant, yes, absolutely brilliant stuff from Red Bull. They have delivered some top stops throughout the course of the year, but just recently it has been Ferrari, as I say, that have been very, very strong. So there is Vettel being chased down by Verstappen, and he's got the gap down to 1.6.
Okay, Marcus, you might see some drop of rain in 5 minutes. We are expecting drop of rains in 5 minutes.
And of course, at a high temperature surface like this, just a drop of rain really won't need them to switch to intermediates.
No, that won't be a problem. You know, it's all about being able to maintain tyre temperature rather than the actual few drops of rain on the tarmac. And then these relatively high, we've got an air temperature of 33, track temperature of 34. You can see that rain there on the satellite as it moves across the arrow pointing to where the circuit is. So, meanwhile, good news for Daniel Ricciardo. He's managed to drop the lap times into the 43s, which is pretty impressive, given that he's done 24 plus qualifying on those tyres. So he will still fall out behind Verstappen, who's only 19 seconds behind him, but it will mean that he's close enough on much, much fresher tyres to attack.
Romain Grosjean, who made a pit stop early on, he's trying to fight his way back through the order, and he's got Stoffel Van Dorn ahead of him in the McLaren. Stoffel, who'll be leaving Formula 1 to go racing in Formula E after this event, he's in 14th place. Lance Stroll further up the road ahead of them, and then, funnily enough, Grosjean's teammate Kevin Magnussen. So it just shows you how difficult it is to overtake here in similar cars, because he's on fresher tyres. You would think with the Haas, which has been very much the sometimes the fourth fastest car, they are probably going to finish 5th in the Constructors' Championship, and yet even for him it's proving to be quite difficult to get past Stoffel Van Dorn, and that is partly the nature of this circuit, isn't it? You just pick up the slipstream in certain places, very hard to overtake though.
Yeah, it's the clean air is necessary for areas like this where you want to work your tyres and work the downforce, and you can see those few drops of rain. They're quite big actually, aren't they?
Great shot from our cameraman. Karun, I can't imagine that's making too much difference just yet.
No, I mean, they're definitely not going to come in for inters yet, but there are raindrops falling, there's no question about it. I mean, it's just really confusing. I still can't get my head around it. We're in the desert, but it's raining here. It's but yeah, as I said, not yet hard enough to switch tyres.
It is the first time, if they classify it as rain affected. Not yet, they probably wouldn't. Here, coming down the outside is Esteban Ocon, trying to get past Sirotkin, but it's not happening for him at the moment. The Williams is still in front, and of course Ocon, having made a pit stop, desperate to try and get through if he can here. No sign of a pit stop yet from Sergei Sirotkin. He's done this on several occasions, gone deep into the race. Here's the chance for Ocon, and he takes it completely. Sergei Sirotkin will be out of Williams next year, as we know, to be replaced by Robert Kubica, the Polish driver, making a very welcome return to Formula 1 after a gap of over 8 years, after suffering a horrendous accident in rallying. And Kubica will be at Williams alongside the new Formula 2 champion George Russell. That's going to be a very intriguing driver lineup, but Williams have a lot of work to do. Now the rain is definitely falling a bit harder.
Yeah, I call that proper rain now. So we've got a nice air-conditioned commentary booth here, but I'm going to encourage Karun to risk standing out on outside of any of the garages and give us some feedback on that, because that does look, it's difficult to see from that camera angle, but certainly that's was enough quantity of rain that they're going to start to struggle to maintain tyre temperature.
Be interesting when we get some of the on-board views as well, just to see if there's any rain hitting the cameras. Karun?
This works perfectly for Daniel Ricciardo, of course, who hadn't pitted.
Yeah, that's right, David. I don't know which camera angle you saw, obviously, but here in the pit lane, it's not yet raining heavily. It's still, as I said before, just a couple of drops on occasion. So, yeah, maybe it is somewhere down the back straight. Maybe that's the one, as you rightly said, that Mercedes were referring to.
Okay, well, we'll watch that. I know the cameras are very good at picking out raindrops and sometimes making it look worse than it is. So we'll watch the battle as it continues. Ricciardo is our race leader. Hamilton currently in second. And then this race between Bottas and Vettel for third place currently, with Verstappen not far behind. Well, the wets are ready. They've got them in the tyre blankets, or the intermediates, I would imagine. But I wonder whether we're actually going to see anybody use them. Simon Rennie has been on the radio to Daniel Ricciardo to say, I don't think it's going to wet the track at all, so just continue as you are for now. So there's Sirotkin now coming under more pressure again, this time from Brendan Hartley, another man who may well be leaving Formula One. He's had a season and a bit at Toro Rosso, the New Zealander, who came from the World Endurance Sports Car Championship, twice a champion in that series, a Le Mans winner as well. But his foray into Formula One sadly hasn't been quite as successful as he would have hoped.
So it's always going to be difficult in your mid-grid car to really sort of make headlines, but it's all about the comparison to teammates. That in the end is what is allowed Pierre Gasly to be promoted into Red Bull for next year. So Williams goes very wide, so this will throw up an opportunity. Not a big braking into turn one. Can he get round the outside?
Brendan Hartley goes side by side with Sergei Sirotkin, who gives him space, and yes, he just about sneaks through and finds a way past. Let's just take another look at this. Yeah, big slide from Sirotkin.
Yeah, got on the power and just running out of tyres. He hasn't made his pit stop yet. And I've got to say, Sirotkin, I think he's had a good season in Formula One.
Oh,
we've got a Sauber slow.
Ericsson going very slowly. Oh, is that going to be his way to finish his Formula One career? So we lost Raikkonen with Ferrari power earlier, and it does look as though we're going to lose another Ferrari-powered machine in the hands of Marcus Ericsson. Going very slowly, trying to keep out of the way. But it's not looking good for the Sauber team with that car. Charles Leclerc is still in the running. He's now in 10th place. And I think Ericsson, whether he can bring it back, no, he's stopping.
Pushing, it's no power at all.
Okay.
Sorry, stop it.
Yeah, he's lost power. So that's very interesting. We've got two Ferrari-engined cars that have lost power. Maybe quite different reasons, of course. So here we are with Charles Leclerc. Sauber still hoping that they can outscore Force India sufficiently today to grab that spot in the championship. Might be a tall order. He's been following Alonso for lap after lap now. I wonder if he's been able to absorb anything.
Well, you're always going to learn something behind a two-time world champion, but Charles, I'm sure, is also trying to figure out whether that early stop for him has really gained him anything. You know, it's close enough to Fernando to be on the cusp of overheating tyres and engine performance, and he'll be, I think, a little bit disappointed that he's not able to use that straight line speed of the Ferrari to get in front of the McLaren.
Yeah, well, Alonso will always look at any opportunity to get into the points. He has finished in the points here the last couple of years. There you can see that odd spit of rain again as they go on to the main backstretch there, the longest straight at this circuit, just over 1 kilometre long. And up ahead of them, they'll be watching, there's Gasly, then Alonso with Leclerc, got a chance this time. And yeah, Charles Leclerc draws alongside and squeezes past Fernando Alonso. Good manoeuvre, nothing really Alonso could do, but can he fight back?
He'll have DRS, so let's just watch as he powers off the chicane. Rear wing opens up. Doesn't look like there's going to be enough. Will he have a... No, I was going to ask if he'd have a dive on the brakes, but he moving to the right-hand side to take the normal line tells you he's accepting that position is gone.
A battle between two generations of Ferrari drivers here, because Leclerc will be at Ferrari next year. Fernando Alonso was at Ferrari at his peak, but sadly was never able to win the world title with them. Actually, 2010 here, he lost out when it looks as though he might well be champion. Nico Hülkenberg watching from the sidelines, trying to see if that rain's having any effect. Meanwhile, an older teammate of his, Sergio Perez, comes into the pits to make his only stop, as long as it doesn't get any wetter than this anyway. Straight onto a set of the super soft slicks and heading on his way once again. So Force India leaving it quite late with Perez. They stopped Ocon a fair bit earlier. I wonder where this will bring him out, because they were running pretty close to one another early on in this race. Ocon is now up behind Romain Grosjean, who made a very early pit stop, but they're both being held up. Out comes Sergio Perez, and you see that's really worked for Perez, hasn't it? to go for the later pit stop because he's come out several cars in front of his teammate. Perez re-emerges in 11th place. We know that Magnussen and Alonso haven't stopped yet, so that will bring Perez back into the points. Gasly is yet to make his pit stop, and we're also waiting for Carlos Sainz in that top group to make a pit stop.
Well, clearly there's a few drops of rain there. Daniel Ricciardo, having gone deep into this race with less gauge in his tyre, was well, it looked like he had enough speed there to get the pass done on Van Dorn, but he's going to wait and use the opportunity down the next straight.
Gets a bit of wheel spin as well, doesn't he? And it's all pretty close behind him as well, because Ocon is right there, so he's going to have to judge this one. Van Dorn does defend, goes to the outside. Oh, it's all a bit tight, and Ocon wants to take advantage.
Yeah, I think I would be inclined to have headed for the inside, but that didn't work out. Maybe next time around. Now, but what I was going to say is Daniel Ricciardo will have less gauge, less tread thickness on his tyres, so if that rain does start to increase at all, then he'll struggle to maintain tyre temperature more than those on fresher tyres.
Well, let's see what happens. Back with Ocon here. He's tucked in behind Romain Grosjean. These guys down in 14th and 15th places, though. This is not where they want to be, and they need to make progress, but they are jammed up behind Stoffel Van Dorn, who's doing everything right from his point of view. He's not made a pit stop. In comes Fernando Alonso. So let's see where this brings him back out again. He's been in position to score points for a little while, but I think once the pit stops have worked their way through, it'll be still very difficult. But so far so good. He's still out there in his last race at McLaren. We'll watch him as he rejoins once again. Sirotkin will have gone through, so he will rejoin all the way down in 17th place. So last of those actually running on track at the moment, but several ahead of him are still due to make their pit stops. Up front, Daniel Ricciardo is still the race leader, leading plenty of laps.
Yeah, but... Okay then, so the wind has changed a bit. You now get a tailwind into 1 and into 11. Tailwind into 1, you can probably feel it.
Yeah.
Right, Max. Tailwind now, quite gusty, into 1 and 11. So 1, 10, 11 tailwind.
Yeah, it's only like 10, 5, 6, 7 words. Definitely slippery.
Copy, Max. Are you doing a solid job at the moment?
Will Smith turning out to be director as well. He's working the camera there. But the gap to Lewis Hamilton is just under 3 seconds now, so very soon Daniel is going to be in threat of losing the lead, and 13 seconds to Verstappen from Daniel, so he's going to come out 7 or 8 seconds behind, but on much fresher tyres. So interesting to see just how far he'll push it into the race.
But it's not like Brazil, is it, where you can overtake a little bit more cleanly. Also, I think the Renault-engined cars, lightning being reported from the helicopter, but whether that actually makes it more likely or less likely we're going to have rain, still doesn't look as though we're up for much of it.
Yeah, I think I would be reporting from the helicopter coming into land before I was worrying about saying there's lightning up there. I wouldn't want to be... I'm sure they can take a lightning strike, but I wouldn't want to be part of it.
No, not be on the ground. Daniel Ricciardo coming under a bit more pressure from Lewis Hamilton. You can see the silver car not far behind as Hamilton looks to wrap up this season with yet another victory.
Also, Vettel just gone purple in the first sector, only 1.7 behind Bottas, so it looks like he's starting to apply the pressure now.
Yeah, down to 1.6 seconds the gap between himself and Bottas. So Ferrari not completely out of this either. And Daniel Ricciardo very much in control. He's not had a podium finish since his victory in Monaco earlier on this year. That does seem like a hugely long time ago. He's had 8 non-finishes as we've gone through the season, and that's been desperately painful for him. But right now, it's where he loves to be, and that is leading a Grand Prix. And we do wonder, when shall we see this again? Will Smith getting quite enjoying himself, swinging the jib of the camera down to the hairpin, where they follow the passage of the cars all the way around that tight corner.
He'll be so disappointed to know they're not using that shot when they're actually using an external camera to show him. All that effort for nothing.
That's right. Hamilton, there he is. It's just bringing that gap down bit by bit, but looking after his tyres as well. He's well positioned at this stage in the Grand Prix. Bottas behind him, who is coming under a little more threat from Sebastian Vettel. Verstappen hanging on in there in 5th place. We've got a pit stop for Pierre Gasly. So Gasly has just come in. We're still waiting for Carlos Sainz to come in, though. And that's going to be an important one when he rejoins, to see how much further he drops down the order. So this is all helping Leclerc move back up into the points. When Sainz stops, then Leclerc should be in front of Sainz, although the gap is only just enough for him to do that. I would imagine Leclerc is lapping at a good pace, but actually Sainz is doing decent pace as well, so that could be quite close between those two. And we shall watch that. Yeah, 19 seconds the gap between Leclerc and Sainz, so that is quite close for position. We're on board here with Sergio Perez, and he is behind Leclerc. So remember, Sauber have a chance of catching Force India in the Constructors' Championship, but if Force India can kind of just stay with Sauber, they'll be all right. Here comes a chance for Romain Grosjean down the inside of Stoffel Vandoorne. Vandoorne's late on the brakes, but ultimately he can't quite do it. Ocon's going to join in the fun, though, because Grosjean went a bit too deep, and Ocon is well placed here to have some fun and maybe get one, if not both.
Yeah, well, to DRS, the McLaren's going to go left, the Force India is going right, the Haas is losing 2 places in 1.
And Stoffel Vandoorne fends them both off. That's great stuff from the Belgian. Really good. Little Grosjean bangs over the curve as well, and he's been passed by the Force India in all of that. He's the one that's lost out. He went for the move, and he's ended up dropping the place.
Yep, I think he would be giving it ooh la la in the car. It's not exactly what you expect to lose places either side of you.
No, he'll be furious about that. And Grosjean's point scoring has not been so good this year.
Mega job, mega.
It was actually a great bit of driving by Vandoorne in a car we know is not the fastest out there. But that was lovely to see. And you know, this is the Vandoorne we saw when he won the Formula 2 or GP2 championship as it was, and we really rated him highly and thought that he was going to go on to great things. But for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out.
Well, you see, this was the start of that manoeuvre on the brakes. This is obviously not at real speed. Slightly sped up there. So the Haas gets the pass done, but then slow and compromised on the exit. No DRS, which both McLaren and the Force India, you saw Ocon thought about trying to go around the outside like he did with, and look at the clouting of the curb there, that the Haas getting launched. I hadn't quite seen that on the other angle, but well, having whacked into the Renault of Hülkenberg, he's now attacked the curb there as well. So that car is going to be a little bit tired at the end of the race. Yeah. Just a thought on Stoffel Vandoorne. So, you know, showed great talent in the lower formulas, hasn't quite worked out in the pressure pot of Formula 1, and he heads off to Formula E, which is the all-electric racing championship. Maybe the fact he's been in a relatively slow Formula 1 car will help him get his eye in for what are considerably slower cars in Formula E.
Here is Ocon now trying to get past Stoffel Vandoorne, didn't quite make it there, and good use of the roads. Very difficult to overtake. Here is a chance, he's gone for it up the inside, and Vandoorne gives him room. That was great racing by both of them. We've seen accidents there in the past, still side by side. Vandoorne will not give it up. Oh, that's great by both drivers. Oh no, he's gone wide. Ocon's made a mistake in the end, but has he got enough grip? This could come back to Vandoorne, although Ocon's got back on track, having run wide, and it looks as though he's got just enough grip there to still hold on to the place. Wonderful racing between two drivers we're not going to see in Formula 1 in 2019.
Well, there's always a question if you get a pass and then you run wide, whether you've gained an advantage, but I think he'd got the pass on the brakes done, and didn't therefore gain an advantage by running wide. In fact, quite the contrary, he got so much dust in his tyres, arguably he lost out from that, so I think that position will stick.
Great camera shot, actually giving you some of the brutality of speed of Formula 1. You don't always get that on the pictures, but that shot right on the barrier there, it is brutal how fast these cars can go, and you can see that when you're beside the track, and that camera shot really gives us a little example.
Well, they're doing 333 kilometres an hour at the speed trap. Ocon's the fastest man. That'll be assisted with a bit of DRS.
Let's have a look at Romain Grosjean. He's going to go for it again. So Vandoorne defends the inside this time. How's it going to work out this time? Has he got in front? Yeah, he has done it. But don't forget, Vandoorne might still come back at him. Meanwhile, Alonso is battling here. He's got past Sirotkin. Yep, managed to squeeze past the Williams. So having put the new tyres on, he's now trying to charge his way through the field. Do remember that Vandoorne is yet to make his pit stop. So there's still some work for him to do. Sirotkin coming back here at Alonso. He's not giving the man who's who's leaving at the end of this race such an easy time.
You know, I think I started and didn't quite finish earlier saying that I think Sirotkin's actually done a good job in his first year in Formula 1. Lance Stroll coming through as multiple champion. So I understand his disappointment that just it hasn't worked out. The Williams was a difficult car this year, and it doesn't look like he's got any options to stay in Formula 1 next season.
Late on the brakes, Fernando Alonso still just allowing enough space, and Sergei Sirotkin unable to take advantage. Karun.
Just trying to work out the Daniel Ricciardo situation, guys. He's now 12 seconds ahead of Max. That gap has stabilized. Last time round, both drivers doing a 43.2 in the Red Bulls. I think he's got to pit sometime soon. Yeah, well, bang on cue. I was going to say, I think he needs to pit soon because they need to give him 20-odd laps on fresh tyres to try and make up the gap. So, yeah, bang on cue, he's in.
I think the Red Bull strategist was obviously listening to you, Karun. When you've got a keen eye for these things, and let's see if they do slick work. That looked pretty tidy. 2.5 guesstimate. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, 2.2. Yeah, so it's good. Not quite as quick as Max's was, but nonetheless very effective. So now Daniel's going to be on a fresh set of tyres, chasing after the rest. But the first person or first driver that he will try and pass will be his own teammate, Max Verstappen. So that could be entertaining. The incident is under investigation, whether there was an advantage gained by Ocon when he went past Van Dorn, when he ran off the side of the road.
Well, I don't think so. You could argue that he wouldn't have gone there if he was not in a spot of trouble. But, you know, the gaining an advantage is, you know, gaining a time advantage. And in my mind, the issue he'll have with Ocon, he's now got Grosjean between him and Van Dorn, so he can't really give the position back. And then it's a question of, well, do you add a time penalty later in the race? We assume he's not going to pit again. So I guess that could be a 5-second or a 10-second time penalty added to his completion time.
We're looking at the list on the left there of who stopped and who hasn't. Carlos Sainz yet to stop, and that gap between him and Leclerc is perfect for them to be almost wheel to wheel when they come back out again. Magnussen's not stopped yet, nor has Stroll. They will drop out of the points, promoting Ocon and Grosjean back into the points once again. Van Dorn also hasn't stopped, and he's going to drop right back, I think, when he does make that pit stop. He'll end up coming out behind Sergei Sirotkin. But Charles Leclerc is lapping pretty effectively at the moment, but so is Carlos Sainz. So we'll have to see how that gap develops. They're kind of matching each other, I think, so far. Meanwhile,
Sainz will drop behind, of course, when he makes his stop. We expect that to come sometime soon.
Yeah, that's right. So there is Max Verstappen. He is on tyres that, of course, he switched onto a lot earlier on in this race. And here we are on board with Pierre Gasly. He's now making the move on Van Dorn. And in the background, Alonso's trying to make the move on the other Toro Rosso. Still not over here between Van Dorn and Gasly. As we know, Van Dorn is quite adept at coming back at someone who's passed him on that previous straight, but I don't think he's going to have the straight line performance. He's got the toe, he's got the DRS, and he's got the chance to get back in front. Lovely stuff again from him as we go on board with Vettel, and Vettel is right on Bottas's tail now. So Bottas versus Vettel, this is a hard fight for second place. In the meantime, Ocon has been given a penalty.
Yeah, Vettel's going to get him here on the brakes. Bottas is going to have to be very, very brave. No, it's completed. Or is Bottas coming back? No, he isn't.
Sebastian Vettel takes second place here from Valtteri Bottas and now goes chasing after the race leader Lewis Hamilton, the two who have contested the 2018 world title. Look in the background though, because Max Verstappen's right there as well, and Verstappen charging along those super soft tyres. Surely he's got every opportunity to get past Bottas, and if this is the case for Bottas, does it mean that Hamilton might be struggling a bit by now?
No, Vettel's got 20 laps to try and make good and get up to Hamilton. Hamilton, having stopped on lap 6, has got the oldest tyres of anyone out on track. So, you know, Hamilton is going to be under pressure, I think, from Vettel. And this is where, you know, sort of story of Bottas this season. Did he make a mistake here? He did. He locked up and got all out of shape. That was just before the hairpin at turn 7.
That certainly wasn't what he wanted, was it? He's had a tough year. He was telling us the other day it's probably his most disappointing race. But, season so far, but look how close Verstappen is.
Yeah, well, he's just about to lose another position. Now, Verstappen, you almost don't want to pass Bottas before the end of the straight, because then you're vulnerable with DRS for the next corner. So let's see if Max decides to just get himself into position, into braking in turn 8, and then, yeah, looks like it is.
And he's gone off
locked up again.
Bottas locks up, goes wide. He's going to hand the place, presumably, to Max Verstappen, although he doesn't yet. He might have to, though.
So, just picking up what you said, are they in difficulty with the tyres, or is that just Bottas losing concentration? Will they have to even look at pitting Hamilton again?
And is Bottas going to have to hand that place over? I wonder what the radio communications are like right now, because Verstappen, you can bet, will be on the radio saying he has to give me that place. He went off-road and gained an advantage. If they've given Ocon a penalty, then surely Bottas is likely to get one unless he hands back.
Okay, mate, you took 2.7 seconds out of Verstappen ahead. He's going to be fighting with Bottas. You're going to join the party quite soon at this pace.
He certainly is, because this is slowing Verstappen down, and Ricciardo on his much fresher tyres is going to... There he is in the background. You can see Daniel Ricciardo. He is going to be joining in the fun and games. No change, no swap of position between Bottas and Verstappen, and Ricciardo will be loving watching that up ahead as Vettel tries to chase down the race leader. But Hamilton, I have to say, is still doing some very solid lap times.
Yeah, well, Daniel Ricciardo was 8 seconds behind Verstappen when he came out after his pit stop, and all of this sort of battling between Bottas and Verstappen has just played into the hands of Daniel, and I don't think with that sort of pace advantage on the fresh tyres that Verstappen will be able to resist. He'll make his car wider than most, but in the end, I just don't see. Let's remember the battle they had in Baku, and that ended in tears as they both ended up down the escape road at turn 1.
Well, is Verstappen going to be in the slipstream sufficiently here to have another go at getting past Bottas? He didn't actually have a go last time, but Bottas locked up. This time it's a bit neater.
Yeah, well, I think if they're given a 5-second penalty to Ocon, there has to be a same consideration for Bottas, because, you know, clearly he didn't do the corner at all. He's locked up and cut across and been able to maintain position. You know, Verstappen was ideally placed to be able to get the DRS down the next straight. It's almost like Bottas realising there's runoff area there. He's you know, sort of feinted a lock-up to break the slipstream.
Meanwhile, Daniel Ricciardo, he's now in that 5th place, 13 seconds behind the race leader. You know, that's not impossible. Daniel's been told over the radio, tyre wear is not a concern, so get stuck in, have fun for the remainder of the race. You can bet that Daniel will be doing that. What a chance this is for him in his last outing for Red Bull, his 150th ever Grand Prix start.
Okay, so on the previous lap, Bottas missed out turn 8-9. So there's a chance that he might have to let Max go. So we need to be there to pounce on him straight away.
Hasn't happened yet, though, has it? Bottas allowing him through, and I would have thought that if it carries on like this, they have to give a penalty rather than ask them to swap.
So there's the little lock-up, gets off the brakes, cuts the corner completely, and then comes out further ahead than when they entered the corner. So he's gained an advantage. If you're going to give Ocon a penalty for having completed the pass and then running wide, then I don't see how the stewards can't look at that.
And again, they'll be looking at the sector times, the mini sectors, because there are mini sector points all around the track. And if they look at that and he's done a better sector time, that's a giveaway too, isn't it? So here we go. Is Verstappen looking for the pass? No, he's not.
Well, he's in DRS position. Bottas goes wide, trying to break deep into the corner. So he's going to get overtaken by Max, I would suggest, down into turn 11.
Here comes Max Verstappen, he's got the slipstream. This is the race for 3rd position. He moves to the outside, Bottas defends on the inside, and he runs a bit deep, and Verstappen sweeps round the other side. They touch, but he's through! He's through! Max Verstappen claims 3rd place, and Daniel Ricciardo is well positioned to take full advantage.
That was brilliant from Max Verstappen. He understood the scenario, he knew he had to force his car alongside. Bottas would be thinking no one overtakes at the second part of that chicane. There was contact, and Bottas had to concede the position. Absolute brilliance, and that is why Max Verstappen is one of the few guys that has the chance in the future to match a Hamilton.
Yeah, that was fantastic racecraft. Bottas tried to turn, made contact, it was never going to happen, and it was hard overtaking but perfectly fair from Max Verstappen. So now Ricciardo's got the chance to move up in a 4th, and remember, he's on fresher tyres than these guys around him, but he'll need to get on with it so that he doesn't waste too much time. Up front, I can tell you that Vettel has closed a bit on Hamilton on that last lap. Not significantly yet, but it was definitely a faster lap for the Ferrari.
Yeah, and just looking at lap times, 42.7, as you say, for Vettel, 43.5 for Hamilton. And Verstappen did a 43.5 with a bit of contact with his teammate Bottas. So that's absolutely crucial move for him is Daniel Ricciardo. Now, again, he'll position himself, I would think. I don't think he'll want to get the pass done before the chicane. That said, he might just go for it.
There's a little look down the inside. Yeah, he's down there, he's there, he's already passed.
But he's going to be vulnerable to DRS from Bottas coming out of this corner.
But he's got the grip, he's got good traction. That might be enough, do you think, to stay in front? He's definitely going to come under pressure here as they head down towards turn 11. Verstappen up ahead of them and Bottas coming back, but Ricciardo's deep on the brakes. Oh, it nearly goes wrong, but again, they give each other enough space.
Yeah, well, Bottas must be wondering at this point, he's been taking punches all year, and he must be somewhat punch drunk as he comes to complete his season, and it looks like without a win.
In the meantime, David, we were looking at Carlos Sainz versus Charles Leclerc. Sainz has been into the pits, by the way, and got out in front of Charles Leclerc. So for Renault, a real boost for them. That's an excellent position to be in right now, in 6th place.
Well, I think that is a result of Leclerc when he pitted early, like Lewis Hamilton. He got in a whole bunch of traffic. And just watch Max Verstappen here. So positioned himself wide on the way in so he could do the cutback, and he got enough of his car alongside Bottas.
Lovely.
He just didn't see me.
That was his race engineer, GT's, just saying lovely. And Max saying he didn't see me. Well, whatever, it didn't quite work out for Valtteri Bottas. And then this is the replay of Daniel Ricciardo making the move. And then he did have to defend into the next corner, but he did enough, and Red Bull are on the charge. They're now into 3rd and 4th places, but Lewis Hamilton leads the race. So lap number 40 they are on now. Hamilton is the leader, Vettel in 2nd, Verstappen 3rd, Ricciardo 4th, Bottas in 5th, Carlos Sainz in 6th.
And Sebastian Vettel has come to run about 6/10 a lap quicker than Hamilton. So there's enough laps left in this race for Vettel to be on the gearbox of the Mercedes. And is Hamilton going to be out of tyres?
That's a good question. Can Hamilton manage this race to the end? Little way to go yet. Another good first sector from Sebastian Vettel, but he is 5.8 seconds behind this car. And we know how strong Hamilton can be in these kind of scenarios. He's where he loves to be, that's out leading.
But the team have definitely put him under pressure with that strategy. You know, it's easy to be crystal ball world champions, but will this be for Bottas? Or is it, yeah, Hamilton goes past, so it looks like Bottas will be coming in for tyres.
Yeah, he's been struggling, hasn't he, under braking in particular. But that's why we sort of wonder how it's going to go for Lewis Hamilton for the remainder of this race, if Bottas has been struggling.
Yeah, well, good news. Hamilton's just done his fastest lap, and it's exactly the same as what Vettel's done. So for now, he's neutralising that advance from Vettel.
Bottas has been working his tyres harder both here and in Brazil, interestingly. He goes onto a set of the Ultra Soft, the mid-range tyre, but he was telling us the other day that that's where when he analysed all of the data from the previous race, it was on tyre degradation that Lewis had the edge, and it looks like it again. I mean, that's the thing about Hamilton. He's not just fast, he has this ability to manage his tyres. Verstappen has it, they all have it to a certain extent. And Bottas, in his Williams days, was always renowned for it. But it does seem that at Mercedes, up against Hamilton, he's finding it hard to match the way he looks after the rubber.
Well, of course, you know, I've said many times, past performance, no guarantee of future success. The Formula One we have today is very different. Wider track cars, wider tyres, a lot more downforce. So, you know, drivers come into zones, and I think it's quite interesting. We were discussing this with Mark Webber, actually, off air, about how these cars, they sort of respond to you know, really being hustled, and could well be. You would think it would be strange if you've got a more smooth driving style. You'd expect that the tyres would therefore give you more life, but it may be it's just not activating the rubber in the way that Hamilton does, and in the end he ends up burning more rubber. As we see, we've got Lance Stroll finally coming in. That's a pretty impressive first stint, lap 41.
It's a long way, isn't it, on the opening set of tyres. So, across the line, Hamilton is still the race leader here, and we can see Vettel now 5.2 seconds behind. He gained another 0.6 of a second, but the Red Bulls are both going quicker than the two leaders, so we could see them all bunching up together before the end of this race. Now, we've lost several cars from the race. We lost Hulkenberg, Raikkonen, and we also sadly lost Marcus Ericsson, who's talking to Lee.
Well, Marcus, I know you would dearly have loved to see the checkered flag. We could see all your fans sitting in the grandstands, but it just wasn't to be today.
No, it wasn't, and you know, you want a perfect ending, but yeah, it wasn't meant to be like that, unfortunately. But I still feel like we had a decent race up until that point, running in the top 10, having some fun fights with Carlos and Pierre, so still enjoy the laps I managed to do.
Is it mixed emotions? Because you've been in Formula 1 5 years, but the future looks pretty exciting for you.
Yeah, it's very mixed feelings, to be honest, because of course it's sad to leave, especially with the team being there for 4 years, through a lot of stuff together, and now we're looking so strong as a team, so it would have been nice to continue that. But at the same time, you know, I'm so excited about this new chapter and to be able to fight again in the front, fight for wins. That's something I've been missing a lot, so it's very mixed feelings at the moment, but yeah, let's see what happens.
Marcus Ericsson has signed with a front-running team in IndyCar, so that's what he's looking forward to next year. Meanwhile, we're with Valtteri Bottas, who's now down in 5th place. Kevin Magnussen has just come into the pits, but the fastest man on track at the moment is Daniel Ricciardo, currently running in 4th position, chasing after his teammate. Now, this was when he made his pit stop, Bottas. It was all pretty straightforward. It looked like a good stop. But the tyre wear was the issue, I think.
So we just pitted because we saw something that concerned us with the right rear after the contact.
Yeah, and maybe that was part of it, but he was already locking up before that. Bottas is now, of course, setting in the purple sectors around the lap as he sets fastest lap. We could get a new lap record potentially today. It has lasted since 2009, 1 minute 40.2. We're a little way off that at the moment, but if Bottas is on a fresh set of tyres, as we know he is, there could be a chance for a new lap record to be established here in Abu Dhabi. Fernando Alonso still going in his last ever race. He's down in 13th place at the moment. He's behind Kevin Magnussen, who's just come back out, actually, so he's on fresh tyres, of course. So that's going to be difficult for him. Magnussen could be the one to watch as he now tries to catch up with some of the others around him. There's Lando Norris, who will be driving at McLaren next year. Get used to this young man's face, and it's lovely that we're going to have two young British drivers in two great teams, and they may not be at their strength at the moment, though, both Williams and McLaren. But Lando Norris will be at McLaren, George Russell at Williams, and of course Lewis Hamilton will be at Mercedes as he tries to go on to win a 6th World Championship next season. Slight rule changes for next year in terms of aerodynamic parts on the cars. The front wings will be wider, but they'll also be simpler, and there are changes to the rear wing as well. So the cars will not look vastly different, but in theory they should be able to overtake a little more easily. Mind you, from what most people are saying who are doing the R&D work, it may not make as much a difference as they are hoping for. But those subtle changes could see one team gain an edge over another.
Well, normally what happens when you have regulation change is the top teams sort of open up the gap to the mid-grid teams, and you know, it's the investment in understanding these new front wings is in the tens of millions. It's not a, you know, not to belittle a few 100,000, but it's, you know, significant investment that the top teams are making. Quite simply, your mid-grid teams can't compete with that.
Lewis Hamilton still in control, still managing the gap to Sebastian Vettel as look further back, we've got Valtteri Bottas, who's now all the way down in 5th place. He will be the fastest man on track, as I say. He's just on a 1 minute 40.9 the previous lap around. That lap was actually a little bit slower as he was dealing with some traffic. This is the interesting bit, though, because Verstappen and Ricciardo, you can see on the graphic there how Ricciardo is quicker in each sector, gained 0.4 of a second on that last lap. He's on much, much fresher tyres, remember, than his teammate. But how will they go racing? Will the team say, just get on with it?
Well, Verstappen is pushing on to try and close that gap to Vettel. It's 3 seconds, but crucially he was 0.8 of a second quicker, and quicker than the leader as well, Hamilton. So Verstappen is desperately trying to get himself on older tyres up onto the gearbox of Vettel and be able to gain the advantage of some DRS. But this battle's personal, isn't it? You know, I think that in the beginning Daniel had the measure of Max, and then in the second half of the season then Max has definitely been the guy that's been delivering the qualifying laps and has, I think, outscored Hamilton in the second half of the season, so which is quite remarkable. So Daniel will want to take the scalp from Max on final time as teammates.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? He's got the gap down to 1.6 seconds now, and he's looking for a podium. Of course, Daniel Ricciardo, both of them are looking for a podium. That always means something, to be up there. And for Daniel, he's only had the 2 podiums this year, the 2 victories, and they were fabulous. But Max has had a string of podiums in recent times, and hasn't had the engine failures that Daniel Ricciardo, and other failures, to be fair, not just engine failures that have gone wrong for Daniel. Bear in mind, of course, in the early part of this race, it looked like Max was heading for a retirement until they reset the engine. So it's pretty remarkable that whatever they did, they got sorted. Actually, we can find out more. Christian Horner joins us from the pit wall. Christian, just talking about that, what was going on with Max and his engine settings in the early part of the race?
Yeah, there was a setting on the engine that put it into an engine safe at a certain temperature, and he just tripped that setting. We thought that it had been disabled, but it was, unfortunately, it was still in there, and that then obviously shut the power down to protect the engine.
Since then, they've both had a remarkably strong race, but what happens now? Do you let them race? Do you impose team orders? What goes on with Daniel on these much fresher tyres?
Yeah, well, 10 laps to go. You can see Sebastian's not that far ahead of them. It's a straight fight to the finish, really, so as long as they keep it clean, we'll let them race to the end of the race.
You mean, don't do what you did in Baku?
Yeah, exactly.
And just thinking up front, I mean, we've seen Bottas obviously struggled on his set of tyres. He was locking up a bit. Do you think Hamilton's got this one under control?
He seems to. These soft tyres seem pretty robust. So we think that he should be able to get to the end of the race. So it should all concertina up a bit.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Christian. Let's see what happens in the final stages.
Well, there's a great example of how a team is structured. You've got the 2 race engineers sitting shoulder to shoulder within Red Bull Racing, because of course you are a collective. You're there for the greater good of the team, but you want your driver to win.
Why am I losing so much rear?
Oil maybe on the tyres, we maybe oil, take care, we could have oil.
Yeah, there's a telltale.
Yeah, look at that right rear. See how shiny the shoulder is. They've definitely got some sort of hydraulic or oil leak.
Saw the smoke as well from the back of the car.
Yeah, reminds me of my teenage days when I used to sort of spray my sidewalls to make them look super shiny. Remember those days of pride in your car?
Indeed. But this is a bit painful for Force India, you know, because if they lose him as a point scorer, he's currently in 9th. The situation of Leclerc is strong for Sauber, but Perez is doing enough, I guess, to back up Force India staying ahead of Sauber in the Constructors' Championship, even if Ocon were to drop out here. What other consequences would it have? Well, it would mean that Grosjean would move up to 9th and Gasly would be brought up into the points, but Magnussen's not out of it yet because Magnussen's on a fresh set. In comes Esteban Ocon. Oh, is this going to be how his Force India career comes to an end? Remember, he did pretty much the whole of his first season with them without a non-finish until we got to the very end of the year. Oh, it's not even getting to his pit box.
Well, this could partially block the pit lane. Well, thankfully off track, but well, technically speaking, the pit lane is still part of the racetrack, but yeah, painted curb there, so there's more than enough space for another car to get past, and the marshal looks like they're just going to push it down.
And you might need a few more of them to get the car moving.
Yeah, if he did get engine neutral, doesn't look like it, so there's a neutral release on the top of the cockpit. Normally the marshals should be aware of that.
Oh, this is such a shame for Ocon in that final outing. Next year he'll be reserve driver for Mercedes. He'll be doing a lot of their simulator work, but this is his final race, only for now, with this team, and he'll be sitting on the sidelines next year.
Slightly unfortunate camera cutting to Otmar there, because he was taking a swig from a rival mineral water bottle than their team sponsor, and those are the sort of details that can make a difference.
Eagle-eyed as ever, David. Well, there's Lewis Hamilton. The gap still at 4.9 seconds between him and Sebastian Vettel. What about the 2 Red Bulls? Well, they kind of got into a stalemate by the looks of things, because Ricciardo's got to within 1.92 seconds of his teammate, but now you get into that area, it proves very difficult to actually overtake, and the laps are ticking by now. We are getting into the closing stages of this race, They are only a couple of seconds away from Vettel, mind you, so they are still catching up the Ferrari that's in second place. But have they got the time to really put Ferrari under threat, or are we going to see the three different constructors in this order, first, second and third, Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull, or are we going to see a late change? There's a little bit of smoke as well from the back of Pierre Gasly. Well, he's up in the points now, but that's not looking good at all. He had to have a change of engine for race day. It's an engine he'd already used this year, but he had problems in qualifying yesterday, and it doesn't look good. And you have to say, Honda have not had the best weekend. Remember, they will be powering the Red Bulls.
Point transfer.
Smoke coming out. Smoke coming out.
Yeah, he spotted the smoke. I mean, it may not be engine, it may be hydraulic oil, but whatever it is, it's getting worse and worse. I would imagine that could well be engine, because it's pluming out of the back of Pierre Gasly's car. Meanwhile, Vettel just picking off another back marker in Romain Grosjean, and he's got to watch it because bearing down on him are the Red Bulls. There is Max Verstappen. Daniel Ricciardo will be next through.
Yeah, I think that, unfortunately, the amount of oil you could see initially, it's difficult to imagine that he's going to make it to the end of the lap, never mind the end of the Grand Prix. Well, gamely pushing on with DRS wide open from the back of his teammate for next year.
Yeah.
Oh, and just getting a little bit too close in the... That would have been an unfortunate way to end with Toro Rosso and start with Red Bull if he'd managed to mate with the back of Max's car.
We need to box. We need to box, Pierre.
Oh dear, what a lot of sad stories for final races with certain teams. He will be back in Formula 1 with Red Bull, but it's his last race with Toro Rosso.
Stop now, stop on track in a safe position, stop on track in a safe position now.
That's why we suddenly saw him slow down. He responded immediately to that call on the radio. That means that
Red Bull are out in the pit lane. What's this, are they expecting a virtual safety car?
Interesting point. We've got double yellows down there. I think they're going to get that car out of the way without the need for a safety car or virtual. It says track clear. No.
Okay, let's just keep an eye on the Red Bull came out and they've then gone back in. So they're going to be on their toes right to the end. You never know what's going to happen.
No, you think that that car's in a relatively safe place, that they can probably manage with yellow flags only down at that section, and they are now managing to push it out of the way.
Check if there is fire. Check if there is fire at the back. Check if there is fire behind.
Okay. What is interesting when you listen to drivers in moments of high adrenaline, there's obviously energy and passion, stroke a little bit of frustration sometimes from Pierre, and it's going to be interesting how that sort of is. I'm trying to find my words here, Ben. How he will handle the inevitable frustration of being Max Verstappen's teammate.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I think he was probably shouting at the marshals there, though, rather than the guys on the radio, because he was...
Well, the radio was fired up, though. So.
Yes, I know, it's a bit strange. He had his finger on the button. Marcus Ericsson, sadly out, so we're seeing a number of retirements from... certainly more retirements than normal. Got 15 cars still running. What can I do, says Marcus. And it'll be a shame to see him leave Formula 1. Pierre Gasly, though, he's got great opportunities ahead of him with that Red Bull team next year, but up against Verstappen, that's going to be a tough ask. Meanwhile, no difference in the positions in that front group, although Verstappen, he's dropped back a little bit from Vettel on the last lap. He's actually gone back out to 3.8 seconds between them. Ricciardo still at 2 seconds gap. Bottas in a clear 5th place, a rather lonely 5th place. Carlos Sainz in an excellent 6th place for Renault, if he can hang on to that. Charles Leclerc in 7th, but Perez in 8th, doing enough to keep Force India ahead of Sauber in the constructors' points for now. So that won't change anything. Grosjean in 9th place. Haas will hang on to 5th place in the constructors, and Magnussen in 10th. So looks like we could get a double point score, and that'll be good news for Haas, who haven't scored here in Abu Dhabi in the past. But what about if something were to happen, David? Guess who might get a point out of this? A certain Fernando Alonso.
No, I don't think anyone would begrudge him a solitary point in his last Grand Prix. It'd just be great to see him get to the finish, quite honestly. And actually, despite the difficulties that McLaren have had this year, they've actually managed to eke out a reasonable constructors' position.
There's a small...
Mate, listen, I've heard engine braking.
Well, going up on talk is only going to help that. And I am listening. You don't need to tell me to listen, mate.
You talk about the radio communications of Gasly, but Max is another one, isn't he? You know, who between the pair of them, it could be really entertaining listening to Red Bull radio next year.
Yeah, well, they've got all that youthful energy and excitement, but well, that was a firm response from his engineer, and well, of course, they go into battle together, and your excitement levels go through the roof, and Max knows he's under pressure and much older tyres than Daniel Ricciardo. 5 laps to go. He's got to have his wits about him.
Driving superbly again, though, isn't he? Because he's managing to maintain that gap to 2.2 seconds. Daniel Ricciardo's not quite there. And the top 3 cars, in terms of lap time there, separated by less than a tenth. So it's just remarkable.
Well, yeah, and then Daniel Ricciardo in 4th, just a tenth further back. So we're getting into the sort of more fun part of the Grand Prix for the drivers. The fuel has burned off. The cars are lighter. Yes, the tyres are getting a bit tired, but the man best positioned in terms of freshness of rubber is that man there that we just saw, Daniel Ricciardo.
There's the one remaining Ferrari in this race, Sebastian Vettel. He is heading for a 2nd place. He's had a couple of 3rd places here over the last couple of years, but only the one Ferrari. We lost Kimi Raikkonen a long time ago, but he's now speaking to Lee.
Kimi, what a shame, a frustrating way for your season to end, but also your Ferrari career to end.
Yeah, not the best gift, but that's how racing goes, you know, sometimes. So, yeah, for sure we wanted to finish the race. I think we would have had a pretty good car, but unfortunately we had some issue and it stopped us. So, that's how racing is.
How are the emotions living Ferrari? They've been a family to you for a while.
Yeah, we started, then we had a breakup, and we came back together. So now it's obviously it's been good and good times, bad times, but that's part of the racing, and I think it's good to have both. Then it's more interesting then, and you know, we'll stay friends, and you know, we'll change team, but doesn't really change a whole lot.
Yeah, he changes team, of course, to another one that's powered by Ferrari power, so there'll still be a connection there. Riding on board with another world champion in Fernando Alonso. Any chance of scoring a point here? Well, you can see the gap that he's got to the 2 Haas cars up ahead of him. They're also Ferrari powered and very fast in a straight line. Grosjean's actually set the 2nd highest speed trap figure this entire race. Vettel is fastest in the speed traps, but Grosjean only a fraction slower with a toe at some point. But that means it's very difficult for Alonso with the Renault-powered McLaren to really get on terms with those 2. Can something strange happen in the last few laps? We'll have to wait and see. Esteban Ocon, another driver, sadly out of this race. Pierre Gasly, Marcus Ericsson, Kimi Raikkonen and Nico Hülkenberg all out of the Grand Prix before we get to the checkered flag, but that flag is getting nearer and nearer because we're on lap 52 out of 55 in this 21 race Grand Prix season, and right now it is the man who has taken the title who's totally on target to take another victory. Hamilton leading by 4.2 seconds and maintaining that gap very smoothly, very evenly. Perez here, Sergio Perez, well, he's gradually closed up on Charles Leclerc. Sauber versus Force India. Sauber on target for an excellent result in 7th again. We've seen Leclerc put in some great performances throughout the latter part of this year in particular, consistently finishing in the points. But is he going to have a bit of a threat from Sergio Perez? Because Perez is looking pretty rapid at this stage. And yeah, he's definitely one to watch. It was a good lap last time he did a round. You can see on the graphic there, he was nearly half a second quicker. So that's a big margin. And whether he can now convert that into actually putting a little bit of an attack in place, well, we're about to find out. Leclerc, who will be going to Ferrari next year, doing the swap with Kimi Raikkonen. Can he defend from Sergio Perez, who's had 1 podium finish this year, that remarkable result in Baku earlier this season? 10 times Sergio's been in the points, 9 times Charles Leclerc has been in the points, and it's going to come down to the last couple of laps to decide which of them ends up in 7th place here today. Up front, though, I can tell you that Lewis Hamilton seems to be utterly in control. He's just set the fastest first sector time of anybody. So his tyres seem to be holding up brilliantly well. And Lewis Hamilton is in total command at this stage, opening up the gap now to 4.7 seconds over Sebastian Vettel. Further down the order, the top 10 looks as though it's going to be completed by those two Haas cars, with Alonso just missing out. Hartley down in 12th place, could well be his last Grand Prix. Lance Stroll down in 13th place, the man who we expect to be announced at Force India for next year anytime at all, with his father leading the consortium that took over that team. Van Dorn heading for another finish, but it's all the way down in 14th place. And Sergei Sirotkin looks as though he's going to be bringing the other Williams home. Fair play to Williams, they've had good reliability in the last half of the championship. The last non-finish for either of them, in fact both of them, was in Germany. Lock up there for Fernando. You can see he's still trying very, very hard. And in fact, he had to use a little bit of extra margin. I wonder if he... that might have been a sneaky little tactic by Mr. Alonso. He's clever when it comes to that. Oh, I missed my braking point. Oh, I managed to take a shortcut. What a funny thing. I'm now a bit closer to the guy in front. But it's still a gap of 2 seconds. And I really can't see him closing that down. It's got it to just under 2 seconds now. But of course, the DRS, drag reduction system, doesn't help until he's within 1 second of the car ahead. Still no change between Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez. I wonder whether Perez will actually take the risk here, because as things stand at the moment, Force India will do enough to finish ahead of Saubers in the Constructors' Championship, and that's got to be vital to them.
Use also overtake button to defend. Overtake button.
Yeah, copy.
He's finished 7th on 3 occasions so far this year, Charles Leclerc, in Russia, in Mexico, and last time out in Brazil. And he's on target to do it again. His best finish of the year was 6th in Baku. So it just shows you how consistent he has managed to be throughout the course of the year. Just 21 years old, but holding on for now ahead of Sergio Perez as they come across the line to complete another lap. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, will be coming around that final section of the lap in a moment. Oh, we've got a time penalty for Fernando Alonso for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Well, I have to say, that seems bizarre to me. It'll make no difference whatsoever to his position. The only thing it will make a difference to is whether he can attack and get past Magnussen. And let's not forget that Magnussen and Alonso have had their moments together over the last couple of years. But that is a slightly bizarre penalty, I have to say, for Alonso. Even if he did gain time at this stage in the race, you do wonder. He's got the gap down to 1.5 seconds. But up front, it is Lewis Hamilton, who is on his final lap. There in his shadow is the man he has been fighting for so much of the year in Sebastian Vettel. Vettel has brought the gap down a bit, but that's probably because Hamilton is now just looking after the car, managing the situation, and heading for yet another victory. Max Verstappen looks all set to finish in 3rd place, and Daniel Ricciardo, he's driven well today, but it does look as though the Australian is going to miss out on a podium finish in his last event for Red Bull Racing. Nonetheless, it's been a really solid day for the two Red Bull drivers. Valtteri Bottas missing out, tyre wear really getting to him. He's ended up down in 5th place. Carlos Sainz will finish as best to the rest in 6th, and his teammate Nico Hulkenberg will still finish as best to the rest in the outright championship, with his best season finish in 7th overall. But here's the man of the moment, the man of the entire 2018 season. In fact, it is the 5-time world champion. Lewis Hamilton wins in Abu Dhabi. The final Grand Prix goes to Lewis Hamilton. His 11th win of the year. Sebastian Vettel finishes in 2nd place, and these two stars finish in that order once again, 1 and 2 across the line. Verstappen takes 3rd place. That's his first podium finish in Abu Dhabi, and Daniel Ricciardo brings it home in 4th. A solid day for Red Bull. Sadly, in the end, he couldn't get that elusive podium. But Lewis Hamilton has won again. His 73rd career victory.
Yes, get in there, Lewis. What a way to see out 2018. Awesome work today, mate. Awesome work all year.
And it's time to celebrate. Get the donuts in, the engines and gearboxes don't have to go any further. And he has now taken his 4th win in Abu Dhabi for the outright record here. He was tied on 3 wins apiece with Sebastian Vettel. It's a 4th consecutive win for Mercedes, but this time they didn't get the 1-2. And there is Fernando Alonso, who has now finished the race down in 11th place. With the penalty still, he'll finish in 11th place. He went for it at the end, and he went for it right to the end of his career, didn't he? Fantastic, trying every opportunity there. Run through the rest of the order behind Bottas in 5th, Carlos Sainz finishing in 6th, and actually Leclerc about to finish 7th.
Champ, what a career. Thank you, thank you. You're a champ. Let's go win the Triple Crown.
Zach Brown on the radio to Alonso. The Triple Crown, he's already 2/3 of the way there. He just needs to win the Indy 500. It's spin time, indeed, for all of the guys to celebrate and enjoy the moment in the grandstands up there. What a great view they've got, all this going on. There is Lewis Hamilton. And, well, what a fantastic season. He's taken some more records as well, you know. He's now matched Michael Schumacher for the record number of wins from pole position at 40. And he's actually taken his 73rd career win with Mercedes power, because, of course, his entire career has been with Mercedes engines, whether that was at McLaren or when he switched to the Mercedes Works team. And that beats Michael Schumacher, who had 72 wins with Ferrari power. So yet another record to add to the list. And he just keeps on adding them, doesn't he? He keeps on taking more and more records. 11 wins in 2018. That matches his best season of 2014, when he also had 11 victories that year. And, well, a fabulous time.
Great drive today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in our team for the last 5 seasons. 7 victories, all the podiums, all the high moments, and yeah, we're going to miss you. We wish you all the very, very best for the future, and you know, hold very fond of memories that we have together. So enjoy this slowdown lap.
And everybody enjoying themselves out there. Mind you, Red Bull haven't allowed Daniel to go and drive the Renault, I noticed, in the test this coming week. They don't want to give him that opportunity, because he's still under contract at the moment until we get into the new year. But this is lovely to see Alonso there being celebrated by world champions on either side, Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. That's a lovely, lovely moment, isn't it? Alonso with his 2 titles, with Hamilton now with 5, Vettel with 4, but they are all world champions. And he's going to come around to the final stopping point as well, which is great news, so that we will get to hear from Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton brings the Mercedes home with victory. That early pit stop had us worried at one stage. Oh, nice, very good bit of spinning between both Vettel and Alonso. Synchronised spinning up on the start-finish straight. And now Lewis Hamilton joins in as well. That's the onboard view. They all make it look so easy, don't they? Lost in a cloud of smoke. 3 great drivers in Formula One. I don't think you could ever argue against that. These 3 have delivered so many brilliant performances over the years. And it's lovely to see them celebrating together up front. And the man who finished in 3rd, of course, who could well join them as one of the great champions of the sport, but we'll find out in the future, and that is Max Verstappen. He was 3rd here today. By the way, Charles Leclerc beat Sergio Perez by 0.4 of a second across the line. It was that close between the Sauber and the Force India. Grosjean finished in 9th, Kevin Magnussen was 10th, and Haas scored their first points here in Abu Dhabi, confirming, of course, their 5th place in the Constructors' World Championships. Great achievement for the American-owned team in only its 3rd season of competition. But the focus is on these guys, the world champions, who have delivered, and particularly in the shape of Lewis Hamilton. Despite that early pit stop, he looked after that 2nd set of tyres all the way to the end. And you know what? Another record. He scored more points in a season than anybody else in the history of the sport. That is partly because the points changed in 2010, and largely because they changed then. But he's now beaten the tally that Sebastian Vettel set in 2013 of 397. He's the first to exceed 400 points in a season of Formula One.
I'm so happy right now. Thank you guys so much for all the support this year.
Actually, Steve here. You guys have made this season epic. So, a little word, we don't often get to hear you talking together. How much is it meant to be battling out there wheel to wheel?
It's been a real honor and a privilege racing against Sebastian. You know, I've known him since Formula 3 days, and he's always been an honest, hard-working racing driver, and he's always raced his heart out. So did a fantastic job this whole season. There's so much pressure on us all, so don't ever look at our shortcomings as anything less but us giving our best, and Sebastian did. I know next year he's going to come back strong, so I've got to make sure I try and come back with it, but I'm really grateful for the good times.
And Seb, for you, racing wheel to wheel with Lewis?
Well, he's the champion and he deserves to be the champion, so yeah, it's been a tough year, but I think yeah, I tried everything until the last lap. Also today, I really enjoyed catching a little bit, but I think he controlled the pace in the front, so I would have liked it to be a bit more wheel to wheel. But yeah, a long year, a lot of races. Congrats, and as you said, I will try. We will try. I think our whole team will try to come back stronger to make sure we give him a harder run into next year. But final words, I think also well done to Fernando. I think the last years have been very tough for him. We've been missing him, and we will miss him. So well done on his career.
Actually, maybe the three of you together, because this is multiple world champions between Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, and Fernando. Fernando, we wish you well in your retirement. You'll be coming back to visit Formula One, though.
Yeah, as long as I'm not commentating, you know, like some of the ex-Formula One drivers, it's going to be okay. But yeah, it has been a pleasure racing with these champions, and you know, I feel very privileged with you too this year. And yeah, thanks for everything. Thanks Formula One. I will be always a fan of this show.
Okay, Fernando, you've been a true legend. Enjoy the journey home. Lewis, I just want to, you've won the race, it's been an incredible season, but there was a slightly uncomfortable moment there when you pitted lap 6, you came out in traffic. We heard you on the radio going, hey guys, did you know I was going to come out behind this traffic?
Well, firstly, let me just speak, as he's already spoken of Fernando, you know, a true legend. It's been a real honor and privilege to race in the period of time where he was racing. Before I even got to Formula One, I was watching him, admiring what he had achieved, and I was asked all weekend, will you miss him? And naturally, I don't really feel like I miss another driver ever, but I think the sport will miss him, we will miss him, and I definitely will miss him being in the sport. But today there was, well, you know, my engineers, they always talk about stopping super early, and you know, they're way too chilled on their behind the wall. And I was like, yeah, I've got a long way to go, and this car doesn't feel good right now, but it lasted long. Once again, they were, you know, calculated and correct, and that's really why we have to put so much trust in those guys. And a big thank you to Mercedes and all of the team, all the partners. We wouldn't have had this championship without them, and the championship wouldn't be the same without the fans. These guys that travel around the world, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you.
Lewis, congratulations. And finally, Max, you said you'd be on the podium, your 5th straight podium result. Some good hard racing there with Valtteri Bottas. Good day for you.
Yeah, it was not an easy race. I had a problem off the start. Actually, the launch was good, but then my engine went into like a safety program, and I had it again in the restart afterwards. So it was not easy, but we managed to go back into a good position, put a bit of pressure on the guys ahead. I think that we stopped quite early, but I had to because I was on the hypers, and then we managed to keep the super soft alive, and I had a good pace, but last few laps were not that easy because there was a Toro Rosso leaking oil onto my helmet, so I couldn't really see where I was going, but at the end, of course, very happy to be third.
Okay, well, enjoy the podium celebrations. Thank you very much, and we'll see you very soon in 2019 for Formula One.
So the top 3 drivers will be heading over towards the podium now for the final celebration of the year. And Lewis Hamilton, peerless really this season, hasn't he? Just the second half of the year in particular. The whole second half since the first race after the summer break didn't see Vettel win a single race. It did see Ferrari win one race, of course, in the USA with Raikkonen, but Sebastian Vettel failed to win a race from the top three drivers will be heading over. Very tough towards time the podium now. But, well, they will be celebration we know of the year, and they will be fighting fit for 2019 with the new regulations, and they'll be hoping that that gives them the opportunity to take the battle to Mercedes again. But, you know, Red Bull could be in that too. That could confuse the issue with Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly looking strong themselves in Red Bull. Real joy for Lewis Hamilton today. The championship wrapped up several races ago. It always helps for him to be able to relax and enjoy himself. And isn't it funny, in previous years, he hasn't won a race after he's won a championship. And this time, he's gone and won both races, both Brazil and Abu Dhabi. So that puts that one firmly in the box as, oh, he can't win once he's won a championship. Of course he can. It's just that it hasn't quite worked out for him in previous years. This time it has, and he is celebrating. And he can now look forward to a bit of time off, a bit of rest, a bit of an opportunity to regroup and get ready for another new season, and perhaps some more records to be broken. They're still there to be taken. He's now 18 wins short of Michael Schumacher's grand tally. He's 2 titles away from matching Michael Schumacher. And we've got 2 more years of these same basic rules, even though we've got some small changes to the aerodynamics of the cars for next year. So you've got to say that Mercedes will still go into next season as favourites to win again, and if he could do that, that'll be title 6, with title 7 potentially possible in 2020 before the rules change. But, well, that's a long way off, of course. It's been a tremendous day. Will Smith has been a very welcome visitor, good mate of Lewis Hamilton's, and thoroughly enjoying the whole Formula One show. And then we saw the celebrations out on track as well. It's lovely to see these cars in their last few moments, if you like, being pushed to their limit and put on a bit of a display. So Lewis Hamilton, the winner of the last race of the season in Abu Dhabi, taking victory by 2.5 seconds over Sebastian Vettel, but it was Vettel who ended up with the fastest lap in the race. Max Verstappen was 3rd, Daniel Ricciardo 4th, Valtteri Bottas finished 5th, and Carlos Sainz was an excellent 6th heading over. Charles Leclerc was 7th, podium now. Sergio Perez in 8th ahead of Romain Grosjean of the year, and Kevin Magnussen in 10th place. So both of the Haas guys getting themselves into the points. Fernando Alonso missed out in the end. Hartley was 12th, Stroll 13th, Van Dorn drove well, but ended up 14th, and Sirotkin was 15th. We had several non-finishers this time. Gasly, Ocon, Ericsson, Raikkonen, and Hulkenberg all failed to finish onwards. Will be heading over tough towards the podium now. But, well, they will be celebration we know of the year, and they will be fighting fit for 2019 with the new regulations, and they'll be hoping that that gives them the opportunity to take the battle to Mercedes again. But, you know, Red Bull could be in that too. That could confuse the issue with Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly looking strong themselves in Red Bull. Real joy for Lewis Hamilton today. The championship wrapped up several races ago. It always helps for him to be able to relax and enjoy himself. And isn't it funny, in previous years, he hasn't won a race after he's won a championship. And this time, he's gone and won both races, both Brazil and Abu Dhabi. So that puts that one firmly in the box as, oh, he can't win once he's won a championship. Guys getting ready. It's just that it hasn't quite worked out for him. Podium celebrations to begin. This time it has, and he is celebrating, and he can now look forward to be up there for Mercedes. Off, a bit of rest. But an opportunity to regroup, communications, get ready for another new season, and perhaps the man who some more records to be broken. They're still there to be taken. He's now 18 wins short of Michael Schumacher's grand tally. He's 2 titles look at the Constructors' Championship, by the way, matching Renault confirmed as 4th. And we've got 2 more years of these same basic rules, even though we've got some small changes to the aerodynamics of the cars for next year. So you've got to say that Mercedes will still go into next season as favourites between all 3 to win again, and if he could do that, that'll be title 6, with title 7 well be fighting possible in 2020 before the rules change. But well, that's a long way off, of course. It's been a tremendous day. Will Smith has been a very welcome visitor, good mate of Lewis Hamilton's, and thoroughly enjoying the whole Formula One show.
The wind was horrible. Well, I mean, 18 was great, and 19, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we started to struggle a bit with the rears at the end, so for me it was perfect.
17 was tricky, because in the beginning I thought it was headwinds, and then it was pushing.
I went off in 20 at one point. I just understood off.
Yeah, well, me too once over the.
Yeah. With
one
like
lap
5 laps to go, I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
10 laps.
I went light.
And 8 was more difficult in the end.
Braking.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop the car.
No.
And then you turn.
Yeah.
No rotation.
Yeah. And it's not our car.
Well, fantastic conversations going on. They seem so relaxed, don't they? You can sort of tell it's the final race of the year. I think we've got more communication going on between them than we see at virtually any other race throughout the course of the season. And interesting hearing about how that wind strength and direction really affected the cars as well. So the guys are coming out onto the podium here, and it is in third place, of course, Max Verstappen. The final race for Red Bull with Renault, and it's a podium finish. They're 161st together. In second position then, Sebastian Vettel coming up to get his 12th podium finish of the season. But for Lewis Hamilton, it's his 17th podium of 2018, and of course, his 11th victory.
National anthems.
For the final time this year, the anthems play out. Lewis Hamilton, who has now scored a grand total of 408 points for the most in Formula One history, he picks up the trophy for victory here. Once again, the fourth time that he's done that in Abu Dhabi. It's always been a great circuit for him. Mercedes, of course, Constructors' champions, opening up that gap even further at the end of the day. They beat Ferrari into second, Red Bull third, Renault finished in fourth in the end, ahead of Haas in fifth, McLaren in sixth. Force India beats Sauber along the path. Bradley Lord enjoying the moment. Second place finisher on this time, Sebastian Vettel. Second in the championship, and of course Ferrari second in the Constructors' Championship as well. And interestingly, third place on the podium here for Max Verstappen meant that he came within 2 points of finishing third overall in the championship. Kimi Raikkonen did end up third in the championship in the end. Valtteri Bottas was the loser. He ended up down in fifth, but Max Verstappen finished in fourth. So the guys ready to celebrate for that final time. And Lewis Hamilton doing it his own way. Celebration time here in Abu Dhabi. It has been a truly epic season for Lewis Hamilton. He took on and defeated a fellow four-time world champion, becoming the third driver ever to win 5 titles, and he's completed the year with a victory and a record points haul to boot, with barely a mistake over the entire 21 races. 2018 will be remembered as one of Hamilton's finest.